That's spot on. Spot
Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming. Let's get started. Sorry for the delay. We had an executive session before this, but I appreciate everybody coming. And we do have a new board docs, so if we have some issues tonight, just bear with us. All right, for the first agenda item is a call to order, moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, the Pledge of Allegiance is going to be by Magdalena Anala, a sixth grader from Santa Fe. Please all stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right, the next item on our agenda is to convene public hearing. Convene public hearing pursuant to ARS Section 15-948 and Section 15-905 for review and revision number 1 to the maintenance and operation budget to the fiscal year 2017-18. Mr. Hicks, welcome.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler, colleagues and community members. Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be up here today for our first budget revision of the year. Some of the board members may be saying, holy cow, is it that time of year already? It is not that time of year already. We normally do it in December, but there is one requirement this year because the legislature approved a 1.06% for classroom teachers. It does have a requirement that we revise and make it accurate by November 1st. And so this is the last meeting before November 1st. And so when we proposed and adopted a budget, we put in an estimate. So we estimated it, and it was an increase of about 1.16, $1,160,000. And now that we've synced it to the actual number of certified classroom teachers that were teaching in Arizona last year, the actual amount for the 1.06 with benefits is $1,099,000. So this is really just a technical correction. In the December meeting, we will have the full budget revision, but which will have bringing our balances forward from the AFR and an increase of students, because right now we're about 600 students up from the previous year, and so we will put all those into our December revision. This one is truly just a technical correction to make sure we're accurate in that, and so it's changed on two places, page 2 and page 1. The cover page, it's written in there. So really just that's all we're asking, but anytime we revise the budget, we have a public hearing, and this satisfies that requirement. And so that is it. I will stand for any questions, and we'll open it up to the community. I have nothing additional when it comes to the actual agenda item when it comes.
Okay, is there anybody that would like to discuss? No comments? Okay. At least, Mr. Hicks, I remembered this time to actually take comments for the public hearing. Thank you. All right, next item, we are leaving public hearing and adjourning public hearing and going back into regular session. Okay, well, I'll need a motion and a second to come out of public hearing and back into regular session.
I move that we adjourn the public hearing.
I second.
Okay, members, please cast your vote. Does anybody see that?
You're waiting on me.
I don't have anything. It's our first glitch of the evening. Sorry about that.
They need to vote, though. It's not on their screen.
No,
where
it's
they can
not.
vote.
Maybe we didn't join. That's okay, we're being entertained while we're waiting.
That's where I am.
Okay, that's where you are.
Sorry, the meeting might take a little bit longer than we anticipated.
We normally just do a voice vote, but we gotta get it fixed so that we know how. Done.
Better than a problem on this one. No one's gonna have a problem with adjourning this part of the meeting.
Thank you for your patience. Hopefully another minute or so. Yeah, I have mine. Okay,
Motion to come out. You just do the motion to go in,
okay.
public hearing, and then maybe that will try.
Okay, I was told that we need to take a motion to go into public hearing and then to come back out. So I would need to take a motion to, I need a motion to go into public hearing.
I move to go into public hearing.
I will,
And-
okay.
So we have to go back to 3.1.
Now make a motion to come out of public hearing?
No, we have to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Um, 3-1, right?
Yeah, we have to be on 3.1.
Yes, it came up.
Yep, here we go. It came up.
Okay, we got it now.
Mine's not up.
You 3-1, and you are joined into the meeting, correct?
I don't know.
Meetings right here,
Maybe I'm not doing it.
and a little guy.
I'm holding things up then.
And it's gonna be jdome dot .psd and then whatever you set your password to. We can set it, just take a
Thank you for your patience. You guys picked a good night to come when we just started board docs.
do that if it doesn't matter. Join me,
There we go.
then go to 3.1.
Still not gonna let me
I
vote.
think that for this vote, maybe you'll have to be listed as. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
They told us how to do that earlier, but I forgot. It's been 2 weeks, too?
There we go.
All right, it passes 5-0. Ooh, okay, we're moving now. All right, so now we need to redo the motion to come out? Okay. Is everybody able to vote? Oh. I'm sure glad your daughter was here tonight, so she could kind of break the tension. We're all set, okay. Next item is staff recognitions. Ms. Aries, thank you very much for your patience.
Sure, no problem. Good evening, President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. We have yet another exciting recognition for you this evening. As you can see, we brought in this full house, not necessarily maybe for that public hearing, Mr. Hicks, but hopefully for some incredible recognition this evening. As many of you know, Arizona's measurement of educational readiness to inform teaching, you all know it as AZ Merit, is the test that's given to students in grades 3 through high school and tests in the areas of reading, writing, and math. I'm pleased to share with you this evening that Peoria Unified School District had an astounding 363 students from across the district who received the highest score possible on at least one area of that assessment. So that's really, really remarkable. Yes, thank you. Very remarkable. What is worth probably an additional round of applause this evening is that we are so proud to announce that we also have 8 students in our district who received the highest score possible on both the AZ Merit English Language Arts and the Mathematics Assessment. So on both of them, they received the highest score possible. We can give them a round of applause. Are the students that we invited here to be with you this evening. And so we're so pleased to introduce them to you. As you can see, they've brought some family members with them tonight and certainly some principals. They are also very proud. So students, when you hear me call your name and introduce you, I'm going to have you stand up. You're going to go over and see our superintendent, Dr. Stifler. He has a little something to give to you this evening. And at that time, parents, if you want to snap a photo, that would be wonderful. Please feel free to do that. And then after you shake Dr. Stifler's hand, you can come right up here and stand by me. Sound like a good plan? Good plan? Okay. Let's start with Grady Bailey, who's a 4th grader from Lake Pleasant Elementary School. You got it? Very good. Now, Grady, you can come up here and stand next to me. We'll next introduce Brooke Denton, a 4th grader from Santa Fe Elementary School. Wonderful. Great job, Brooke. Come on up here, stand next to me. We'll introduce you to Tammy Lee, a 5th grader from Oakwood Elementary School. And next would be Alyssa Ridgely, a 5th grader from Copperwood Elementary School. I understand, I think she had maybe an athletic event this evening, but I think her mom may be with us tonight. Rose. So Rose, thank you so much for being here. Pass that congratulations on to Alyssa. You all must be so proud. Next is Caitlin McCourt, 6th grader from Desert Harbor Elementary School. Great job, Caitlin. Next up, Magdalena Anala, 6th grader from Santa Fe Elementary School. Very good. And Mackenzie Frey, 6th grader from Oakwood Elementary School. And last but certainly not least, Cameron Hatterley, 7th grader from Sunset Heights Elementary School. Crowd right around this way for me. There you go. And when they move, I'm going to have you come stand right around here, okay? Can you stand right around here in the front for me so the board members can see all of you? There you go. Right around to the front. And as they're making their way right in front of me, so our board members will get ready to offer their congratulations to them. We do have some other folks in the audience that I want to recognize, and those are our principals that are here with us tonight. I think we have from Lake Pleasant Elementary School, Dustin Hammond. I thought I saw Jessica Bartels, the assistant principal from Lake Pleasant. We also have Christina Arias from Santa Fe Elementary School, and I'd like to have you all stand because we're going to give you a round of applause. Mr. Sean Dugood, Oakwood Elementary School, Dr. Michael Kruder, principal at Copperwood Elementary School, Becky Burhow, principal at Desert Harbor, and of course the proud duo from Sunset Heights Elementary School, Mrs. Ray Connolly, and assistant principal, Mr. Phil Valentine. Can we give them a round of applause? I know that they're all so proud of these students and, of course, representing their schools so well. And then the last piece, students, I'm going to need your help because I know you have some family members here that give you an awful lot of support and that we're here taking your picture to hopefully post all over Facebook and Twitter with the hashtag Peoria Unified Pride. And so can you help me? We're going to have your family stand so we can give them a round of applause. Can you lead that round of applause for us tonight for your family? Now, President Pingarelli, I will turn it over to you for any congratulations you want to offer our students.
All right, well, I will start it off with Mr. Sandoval.
Thank you. First off, congratulations to all of you, the students, principals, teachers and staff of your respective campuses. Certainly, a testament, to the leadership and your passion, for these students. So, any one of you, just going to ask if one of you can answer the question. How do you feel? What attributed your success on the test? Anyone can answer.
Well, obviously, my parents helped me, but my teachers. Oh my God, Dad. Well, thank you. But my teachers, they kept saying over and over, check your work like a million times, and I'm like, not again. And I think that actually helped me because I did catch some answers that were wrong, and they helped me to exceed in that test. So.
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you for that.
Mrs. Doan.
I just want to say we are very proud of you all, but I know it can't approach how proud your families and teachers are. It was a hard test, huh? Anyway, we're very proud of you, and I certainly hope that you keep up the excellent work and that you enjoy your school as well as excel there. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. Mrs. Connect.
So I was moved because the principals looked just equally as proud and happy as the parents because they're all our kids, right? So we're so exciting. So when you do well on a test, you kind of have a feeling that you did pretty well on a test, right? Right? You feel I did pretty well. So, but what is that like when you look at the piece of paper and you realized you aced both parts of the test? What was that like with you and your families when you realized you had 2 perfect scores? Anyone want to share a story?
Well, at first I didn't think it was mine.
I know that feeling.
Then I made sure it was mine, checked the name, and then I was actually excited because my sister didn't, so. When I got it, so, yeah.
Thank you.
That's very exciting. You know, we love to yell it from the rooftops, all the really cool things that go on in our school district, athletics and arts and fabulous things, but nothing is more important than the academic achievement of our students. So when you shine like this, it really makes us very happy and very proud. So thank you for your hard work.
Mrs. Sejar Martinez?
Thank you for being here, everybody, to support our students. I will tell you that our governing board, the reason why we sit up here and our superintendent and staff is specifically for you guys. And knowledge is power. And so what you have proven to all of us today is that you have a lot of it, and we look forward to seeing all that you do with it. So go celebrate. I think ice cream, dinner at a restaurant. But thank you so much for all your work, and it's definitely noticed and appreciated. It's a home run.
Well, thank you very much. And I won't put anybody on the spot to ask my questions, so you can relax. But I just wanted to thank all of you for being here and what a great job you've done and how well you represent this district. I want to thank the parents for coming. I know as a parent of 2 children how challenging it can be at times. You have obviously great children, and to all the principals here for all the hard work that you've done. But it is your hard work and your achievements, so I just want to congratulate you. Thank you very much for coming. And as Mrs. Sejar Martinez had said, that now the board meeting isn't going to be as interesting. So it would be a good time if you guys want to go have dinner and ice cream. We won't take offense to that. So thank you for coming, and have a good time tonight.
Interesting how that works. President Pingarelli, may I slide in 3 other recognitions?
Sure.
Pretty quick, but pretty big here. First, I'd like to recognize Dr. Benson and his team at Foothills Fine Arts Academy for holding an Arts Learning Day for over 30 participants from across Arizona this week who came to see the impact and success that Foothills provides to students. The group was impressed with the level of arts experiences, integration, and the bigger picture of how the arts impact student learning and success. And we truly had people from all over the state come, teachers, principals, others. At Desert Palms, the other day celebrated the grand opening of their own Family Resource Center, the second location in our district, and Tuesday evening was the inauguration of the Family Resource Center provided through the support of First Things First and Dr. Pischke's efforts in early childhood learning. Thank you, Mr. Troy, the principal at Desert Palms Elementary School, for your hard work and commitment to early childhood development and hosting the center. And finally, Love Our Schools Day took place on Saturday, October 14th, and nearly 1,200 volunteers from churches around the valley came to help our schools with cleaning, landscaping, and staff appreciation projects. Actually, even more than that. A special thank you to Tracy Beal and Gary Gillespie from School Connect for organizing this, and to CCV and the many other churches in our communities for providing your time and service in helping our schools that day. It's really a tremendous thing that happened. Tremendous. Thank you, Ms. Pingarelli.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Moving on to board recognitions. I'll start with Mrs. Sejar Martinez.
Thank you very much. I do have a long list. I was not at the last board meeting, so the SROs, thank you for all they do, but specifically, I want to address, on October 4th, Oakwood Elementary School had their Walk to School Day, and we had the Peoria Police there, the Peoria Fire Department, community members. It was a huge success, and I had the opportunity to serve all kinds of treats. I know that we had milk donated, and it was a home run. So thank you, community members for that. I had the pleasure of attending Sunset Heights PTSO. Mrs. Conley was there, as well as Mrs. Bartell. She is the Lake Pleasant assistant principal, but she has children at Sunset Heights, so she does dual duty of supporting both schools. And the president there, Miss Nikki Ojen, I had the opportunity to witness their bylaw revision process, and they had a lot of parents in attendance, and teachers and staff. So it was quite an experience to see. In addition, I'm proud to say that our governing board this year has had many opportunities to get out into the community and build relations with our administrators. So I appreciate them reaching out to us. I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Savoy, Dr. Bell, and I appreciate all of you guys reaching out to the governing board so we can continue building those relationships. And for Stefan and Diane for board docs training, staying with us. You're behind the scenes people, but we definitely recognize and realize how important you are to us. And with that being said, I am done. Thank you.
And I think Stefan will probably need his help more tonight, so appreciate your here.
Yes, and I apologize. One more, I just remembered. So I saw my governing board members acknowledging homecoming last Friday and senior nights and throughout the week. But I sent an impromptu text to Dr. Stifler and said, can I attend Liberty High School's homecoming? And that was my first attendance of 1,300 students. Oh my goodness, it was huge, and we got to welcome and initiate our Mr. Ton help me with his last name.
Ajeris.
Ajeris.
Just say it quickly.
Yes, thank you. And the math teachers that help volunteer get all those kids in safely. So kudos to Liberty High School and all those teachers and staff who volunteered their time on a Saturday evening with 1,300 kids. So thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the staff members and the students at both Ironwood and Saguaro Ranch for hosting us on the patron tour, and thank you to the PR department for putting on another really great event. Again, I'll say this to the public at large, if you haven't caught one of those events, it is really a treat, and so we have another one coming up next March, so watch for that. Take advantage of that. And I also wanted to thank Dr. Bell for showing me around at Cheyenne Elementary and Country Meadows. Thank you, Mr. Schuff and Ms. Wallace and Ms. Skip at Country Meadows for showing us around. It's truly impressive. You've selected some outstanding educators to work on your team, and it really showed in the work that your students were doing. So thank you very much for that one-on-one opportunity. It was fabulous. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Doan?
I don't have anything this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, thank you. So today, actually, I had the really not opportunity but privilege to join one of our PSBN activities down at the Dave Pratt Studios. The students actually had a couple of questions for me, which was certainly exciting and an honor. But I think, when I took a look at the student that hosted the show today, she's actually a graduate of PUSD. She's now at the Walter Cronkite School there at ASU and doing well. But to see the confidence and the smiles and the adaptability of these students was inspiring, and certainly, makes this position to sit in this seat, even more of an honor. To represent a district that continues to not just adapt, but integrate certain programs, partners, to continue to nurture the creativity of our students and put them in a position to be successful, throughout college, career, and life. So just a shout out to Mr. Yoder and Johnson. It was, again, it was a privilege to be with these students and yet to just experience yet another program that differentiates our district from the others. And lastly, I do want to give a quick shout out to the class of 1987 of Cactus High School, which is my wife's class. They are having their 30-year reunion and attended the homecoming on Friday, and kind of celebrating memories and really more importantly and more relevantly, celebrating the certainly the experience that they had in our district, and certainly which helped shaped who they are today. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I don't have anything this evening, so we can move on to agenda item 6, public comment. We do have one this evening for Kat Gatros. Sorry. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President Pangarelli, Dr. Darwin Stifler, members of the governing board, and members in the community. My name is Kat Gatros. I am a former alumni of one of the schools here in PUSD. I'm a mom whose children attend the Peoria Unified School District, and I am also a first-time member to the PTSO at Cotton Bowl Elementary as a board member. Cotton Bowl Elementary next month will be having a family fun night on November 9th, 2017 from 5 to 8 p.m. Cotton Bowl is having a community-based family fun night, so we invite all of you on the board and everyone in the community to come out and join us and support Cotton Bowl Elementary. Come and show your support for Cotton Bowl in the South Peoria district, so go Bulldogs, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And again, that is November 9th from 5 to 8. Thank you. All right. Next agenda item is the consent agenda. Does any member need to pull any items from the consent agenda?
Yes, I would like to pull, hold on. Stifler, do you mind helping
It's
out?
item 14.
Thank you,
Excuse me, item 13, 7.13.
thank you. The Developer Assistance Agreement.
Mrs. Pingarelli,
Yes.
I'd like to pull 7.6, the donations report, and 7.12.
Okay. Does anybody else need to pull tonight? No. Okay.
Mrs. Pingarelli, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of item 7.6, 7.12, and 7.13.
I'll second that.
All right. Members, please cast your vote. Just a minute to get it situated. That was quick.
All right.
So which items were they? I'm sorry.
7.6, I'm ready, I'm prepared.
It was 6, the first one?
Yeah.
6, okay. It'll just be another minute.
Would you like me to go ahead?
Would that?
I would like you to.
I would be happy.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Item 7.6 is the donations report. It's always a very heartwarming experience to look and see the contributions that community members make to our schools. And I just wanted to call out in particular the Peoria North Rotary's contribution of $5,000 to help our programming for homeless students that are attending our school district. I thought that was exceptionally generous and certainly certainly a really positive thing to do for those students. And then secondly, this is just a confirmation. I just wanted to clarify. In item 7.12, Dr. Stifler, there was some confusion last time about whether we were talking about GCU or GCC, but I just wanted to make it clear that it was in fact GCC.
The form was correct last time, and this is the very same form, but the agenda item said was incorrect last time.
Okay, very good. So this is about approving our dual enrollment programming with Glendale Community College. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
All right.
Actually, sorry to interrupt.
No,
Actually, I'll move to approve items 7.12 and 7.6 since I pulled them.
Do we need to do them individually?
That would have been, that's better form. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
then we will, I guess you want to start with 7.6?
Well, I move to approve 7.6
You do them
and
both.
7.12.
All right, I will need a second.
Second.
All right. Members, please cast your vote for 7.6 and 7.12.
Mr. Sandoval, that's probably going to be very helpful, that kind of signaling on who was second and who was one there.
Two.
So intuitive.
All right, passes. Next item, Mrs. Sahar Martinez, you pulled, is 7.13.
Thank you.
We still need to do 12, I believe.
Oh, we have to do, I'm sorry. So that was only for 7.6. We're going to do 7.12? Okay, then I will move that we approve 7.12, since I had found the mistake last time.
I'll second.
Okay, members, please cast your vote. We need to have that little girl back to do some singing. Oh, it just now popped up. All right, 7.12 passes. 7.13, Mrs. Sahar Martinez.
Thank you, Mrs. Pangarelli. I've brought this item up before, developer assistance agreement. I believe that we do not have enough information to say that this is a good decision for our district. I've done some research and met with past administrators from our district, and we have not looked at our agreements for over 11 years. I would like to have some questions answered, such as how is it calculated? How is the money spent? Is it equitable? Where's the money? How is it structured, calculated? Any new recommendations from the administration before we proceed with approving this developer assistance agreement? I know we've heard argument on both sides, and I wanted to bring it up again.
All right. Does any member have any discussion?
What's the position of administration on the developer agreement?
It should be approved. It's recommended to be approved.
And it's standard?
This is our standard developer agreement, This is a standard agreement for, I believe it's apartment condominiums. I believe it's 15. It's an infill project in the southern part of the district. The developer is pledging $6,000 to the district upon completion of all of the apartments, condominiums.
Any other comments? I would need a motion and a second to move this one.
It does seem like it's worthy of another conversation, but for the sake of moving things along, I move to approve.
I will second
So-
that one. Oh,
Sorry.
if you know.
I just, I was thinking about the $400. I read through it, and thank you for pulling it, Monica. It's based on per unit, not, it's a rental property. Yes?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Condominiums are generally sold. It's the same building, and so you can make a decision at the end, do you want to rent them or do you want to sell them? And an apartment that you sell is a condominium, so.
I guess my question would be in and around, as the tenant, if it is a rental property, tenant churns, brings in new tenants, new students, new, children, how that, those dollars, is there a lower dollar amount per tenant, I guess, that we could take a look at with regard to this agreement?
It would be very difficult to predict how many students are going to be there.
Sure, agreed.
Ms. Davy, would you help me, please? Well, she's coming to the microphone, but however, once these units are built, this vacant property will go on to the property tax rolls, and it will pay regardless of if there's children there or not.
Yep, gotcha.
Historically, apartments do have a lower yield, and that's what yields a lower price from 1,000, which is a single-family home, to 400 for apartments. And it is, like you said, a fill-in project in the southern part of our district. We do not expect a large number of students to come from apartments.
I would add that any infill projects in the southern part of the district help our schools that are smaller in enrollment. We have room in every single school in the south, and I would think we would want to do everything we could to encourage infill projects in the south.
Yeah, got it. All right, thank you.
Questions? Okay, I had seconded that one. Okay, members, please cast your vote. Sorry for all the dead space this evening. All set? Okay. Next agenda item is agenda item, it did pass, and well, actually 4-1, but it still passed. Next agenda item is agenda item 8, to reorder, address agenda and consider adoption or recommended changes. Are there any changes to the order of tonight's meeting?
Mrs. Pingarelli, may I please request that presentation and discussion pertaining to personalized learning be moved up?
And be moved up behind...
Budget and revision, my apologies.
Behind 9.1 and make it 9.2?
Yes, please.
Okay. Diane, is that easy enough to do? Okay, I'll need a motion and a second to,
Monica made the motion, right?
I move to move presentation discussion pertaining personalized learning to 9.2.
I'll second that one. Okay, members, please cast your vote. Yep. I'm missing our old program already. I didn't have a problem with it. You're doing very well, Diane. Who was the?
Oh.
To the order of business.
or recommended changes to the business order.
All right, that passes 5-0. All right, then we will move on to agenda item number 9, which is consideration of budget revision number 1 to the maintenance and operations budget for fiscal year 2017-18. Are we going to?
The administrative recommendation is to pass it as.
Okay, I
Mr.
didn't know if
Hicks had
Mr.
said.
Hicks wanted to come up again. No, okay. So then I would need a motion and a second to move this along.
I move that we approve expenditure budget revision number 1.
Second.
Please cast your vote on this one. All right, passes 5-0. We're moving along now. So next item will be, we're skipping to 9.2, presentation and discussion pertaining to personalized learning. Welcome, Dr. Bell.
I appreciate that. Board President, Governing Board members, Dr. Stifler, and our community. I'm excited to be talking about our efforts to more personalize learning for all students in our district. So we'll have a brief presentation and then some information that I hope answers some of the questions of our Governing Board. We're going to be using, for the first time, Microsoft Sway. It's a new tool with our Microsoft Office applications tonight. So you will see some pictures of recent students in our schools, either from our board one-on-one walks, which I hope I can get all of you scheduled to go on, or from our community visits on our patron tours. So we'll go ahead and get started, and Connie Whitty's going to help me manage the Sway. Personalized learning is kind of taken on a new definition. I got this charge from Dr. Stifler a couple of months ago in terms of helping to lead and work to build our own infrastructure in Peoria Unified School District for personalized learning. I love this cartoon, so we're going to start there. That gives you kind of an explanation of what we're trying to move
What do you picture
toward.
when you hear the word What do you school? Picture when you hear the word school? Is it this? Is it this? Each day, teachers work to instruct classrooms filled with students, each with their own interests, academic level, and way they learn. Imagine trying to teach a class of 30 students how to add fractions. By the end of the lesson, half the class might get it, half might not. So what should happen the next day? The teacher can reteach the lesson, leaving those who got it bored, restless, or disruptive. Or the teacher can teach a new lesson, letting the kids who didn't get it fall further and further behind, until they are discouraged or frustrated. We need alternative methods. We need to give students a more individualized curriculum and ensure that students get what they need, when they need it, how they need it. If we're serious about trying to meet the needs of every child, we need to view traditional teacher-led class instruction as just one way kids learn. There are other options. Students can also learn in small groups from each other, or with videos, games, or practice problems on their laptop, or with online instructors, or even by themselves with books, activities, or software. These are just a few ways students can receive instruction. We call them modalities, By joining different modalities into one learning environment, where students, teachers, and resources from multiple classrooms can be combined into one open space, we move from a model that looks like this to a model that looks more like this, where students get instruction at their own academic level in the format most likely to be successful for them. For example, this teacher is helping a group with triangles, while this student is working on algebra with his online tutor. This is just one model New Classrooms is developing to reimagine the classroom to meet the needs of every student.
So for us, blended learning is the idea that kids come to us and show up in our classrooms, and we're still doing the in-person instruction that we were used to when we went to school. However, we've also added technology and digital tools for kids so that their learning is blended. This enables us to more personalize learning, and as you could see through the cartoon video, it really allows us to individualize, to separate kids into small groups based upon their needs, and really tailor our instruction and what we're doing in classrooms to the needs of individuals or small groups of kids. So there's some other information associated that I provided for the governing board for your reading. Last year and this year, as you know, we've contracted with Education Elements to help us build this infrastructure for personalized learning in Peoria. What we started to work with in terms of how to manage this system-wide, because we are so big, Dr. Stifler asked me to take the lead, and I work very closely with my colleagues, Steve Savoy and John Gay. We talk probably twice a month at least with Education Elements in terms of planning for our next steps for not only our professional development and our principals meetings, but also with what we call our Personalized Learning Steering Committee. That consists of a group of administrators, coaches. It's kind of small so that we can effectively, A, build our infrastructure as quickly as possible, and also to make decisions based upon the information that we have. In this visual, you see that the core 4 is defined for personalized learning through Education Elements. It's defined for us with integrated digital content, targeted instruction, student reflection and ownership, which means there will be an element of student choice, and student accountability, which you'll see in a video in just a moment, and data-driven decision-making. It's important to know that this really has started through more of a grassroots effort than from a top-down effort. That means that we wanted schools to explore new tools. They began that journey last year. This year, Steve Savoy and his team allowed schools to set individual school goals for taking next steps for personalized learning at their school. That means it can look very different to get started at one school in personalizing learning than it does in another school. Our academic and instructional leadership, as well as the members of the Personalized Learning Committee, are working to support and even recognize the efforts of each school. One venue that I chose is to ask board members to go with me or with us as we explore these next steps that schools are taking, and more importantly, what teachers are taking, because we're really working, even our coaches across the district, to align the support to the school goals and to basically support risk-taking, because whole group instruction is what some of us are used to doing, and managing all that we're trying to do in a blended learning environment becomes more difficult for teachers. So you'll hear from them in just a minute. Wait, I want to go back. Last year, and I wasn't here, so I had to catch up really quick to try to answer the question, what has and will Education Elements be doing for us? Last year, they provided our administration, directors, leadership with research, with professional development, with a little bit of visioning, and so that we could get started in terms of thinking about what this means for Peoria for our future. So they also conducted classroom visits, gave us feedback about what they were seeing, in part to determine our readiness for change. We see whole group instruction. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Direct instruction is a strategy that works. That said, we wanted to kind of test our readiness to see our willingness to change and try new things. I was able to attend last May the end of the year workshop for our principals before I came on board. And then we had a summer team attend a summit, I understand, that our principals wanted to participate in. They took remaining funds from their Title I funds and from their school funds in order to explore greater professional development for themselves. This year, again, is them working with Steve and John and I in that planning. They will also be back to, in their contract with us, providing additional professional development for principals, for our instructional coaches, and for our personalized learning steering committee. Again, we are hoping to build our infrastructure so that after this contract is exhausted, we'll be able to support ourselves, since we've been working to essentially sustain our own efforts in personalized learning for the future. One of our schools that I took Miss Connect to was Cheyenne, and I'm glad that Dale is here this evening to kind of celebrate his staff, that we decided to include in a video in a competition we entered, and we just recently found out we were selected as one of 5 districts across the country. Our prize, if you will, is yet more professional development that will occur between January and February of this school year. I'm really happy to share that celebrity judges were the ones that reviewed all of the applications, and it did include a video segment, among other things. And one of those was Michael Horn, who actually was the author of Blended Learning. So that was a big deal to me. I thought it was cool. Okay, so Connie, if we want to start the video. This is a first-year teacher, and we got to visit her in her classroom.
Oh, there's so much that excites me about personalized learning from a teacher's standpoint. I love that I have 85 students that come to my room every day, and I have to find a way to reach them. And with personalized learning, I'm able to reach the students who are above grade level, the students who are below grade level, the students who are ELLs, who are on IEPs. These students come to me every day, and I have to find a way to teach them the content for the 6th grade. And with personalized learning, I'm able to do that. When my students first came to me this year, they weren't really pushing themselves to do things on their own. They wanted everything handed to them. They wanted to be spoon-fed information, and personalized learning has pushed them away from that to where now they're starting to be problem solvers. They're starting to answer questions on their own and look for the answers to questions on their own without having to come to me and say, Ms. Watson, I need your help with this, I need your help with this. They know that there's places and resources that they have where they can go to try and find the answers for themselves. And I think that's the goal with personalized learning, is just to push students to be problem solvers. Currently, my students are working on an energy playlist. This is the 2nd playlist that they've done this year. And the first time we did it, it was a little bit tougher for them because they had to really be independent and they got to choose their own path, but that was hard for them at first. And this is the 2nd time I brought the playlist in. And now they're all really excited about it, and they just want to work on it all the time. So they're really starting to take that initiative and be more responsible in their learning and take the lead in their learning, which is really exciting to see.
This is Dawn.
This year, with the advent of blended learning, I have to admit at first I was thinking, okay, here's the next newest thing. But once I tried and failed a couple of times, I see the value in it. And not only that, my students see the value. They like knowing I'm going to be doing 1 or 2 different things today that's going to enrich what I'm supposed to learn for this curriculum, for the content. We are focusing on genetics and heredity at this time. and they're very excited about it, but it can be challenging. So the energy that I feel, give me more information. They're extending now, they're learning on projects, and they are taking Punnett Squares, Mendel's research to the next level, and I've never seen that prior. It was the rote, they want to copy and paste, give me the basics. Now they are telling me and explaining to me exactly what these processes are, what they do, how they affect how we look, how we grow, how we think, and that's amazing to me. After 14 years of teaching, I'm pretty excited about this process. I'm looking forward to seeing how it works into my next unit, which is huge and difficult. So I'm excited about this process.
I want to kind of pause there and ask Dale if he has anything else to share about his building's journey towards personalized learning. Not to put you on the spot.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, sure.
President Pingarelli, Dr. Stifler, members of the board. I don't know if many of you know this, but this is actually my second tour at Shine Elementary School, and my mother-in-law lives about a block and a half away from Shine Elementary School. I only live a couple miles, and it's like a home to me. So Shine Elementary is a special place, filled full of amazing teachers who are willing to take risks. Last May, when I became their principal, I was at Sun Valley before, I met with all the staff members who were willing to meet with me, which was 35, and I asked the same question to all of them. If I was to show you some blended learning models, would you be up for that? Would you be up for kind of looking at your instruction in a different way? And all 35 of them told me, yeah, we'd be willing to take that risk, we'd be willing to take a look at that. And so that's how we started our year. We started our year by saying, let's transform our classrooms in ways to reach our students. And it's just built in unbelievable ways. We have every single on our campus. Usually there's some that are a little more nervous, maybe not willing to take those risks. I don't have that at Shine Elementary School. 100% of our teachers are willing to take risks, look at their instruction, and make sure that they are meeting the needs of the students that are in front of them. So sometimes that does mean that they're transforming how they're doing lesson planning, and they're doing what we would call station rotations or playlists and some of the things that you visually saw in these videos. Sometimes it just means direct instruction is acceptable, and it's probably the most efficient way to go about your lesson planning that day. But they're making smart decisions in every single day. And I don't know if that kind of wraps up my whole process of thinking about it, but I would invite anybody who really wants to see what personalized or blended learning looks like in classrooms, I'd invite you to come out. Any day you'd like to come out and take a tour. And I think that you would be very impressed with what you see with our teachers.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to a patron tour. We were at Ironwood. I asked Nina, one of our coaches, to stay back and ask these high school students what they think about what we're trying to do with personalized learning.
Can you tell me what you feel the benefits are for being able to be using digital content in your math class?
The benefits are that I'm able to go my own pace, and it's easier. Instead of like waiting for the whole class to understand, I can go on my own pace. Yeah.
Well, you start with the pretest, and once you're done with that pretest, it sets you at a level that they think you're at, and then you work up to better, like, what level you're at. So it's really just where you are, so it helps you understand what you need to learn and what you're struggling with.
What we'll see next are a variety of pictures in our sway. I want to draw attention to the variety of devices, not only just technology or notes, but certainly calculators and other things. You'll see student groups, alternative seating, small groups with teachers, and peer-to-peer support, all of which are characteristics of personalized learning. Get questions from our governing board or from some members of the governing board about wow, how much is this costing us to take this initiative? This is, the one thing I can say about the cost of this is that it's, while we can talk about, and I want to make some comments about some of the attachments that you have, this is transformational in how we do business in classrooms with kids. So it's hard to limit the cost to one contract or to one or two digital components of what we work with. You'll see here a copy of the student webpage, and all of these represent some level of digital support for kids that have been purchased or that we are piloting. The piloting that began last year and continues into this year was one way to promote exploration and essentially excitement. It was a little bit difficult for us to manage on the front end. When I first came here, I think that was probably one of our first order of businesses for me with curriculum, technology, and finance in terms of how do we systems-wide manage what we're trying to achieve here. So we began putting some vehicles into place around how we work from the pilot or the tool to John Gay's department in technology of, because we have to upload students and share student data and information in terms of building that infrastructure in the technology department. And finally, making sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's, if you will, in finance. And Michelle Myers, certainly Ken and Michelle and her team, Laura, really worked with us to make sure that as these tools went through our system, that we were able to connect all the pieces of paperwork to make sure that we were doing our due diligence with managing our funds and certainly the pilots themselves. Pilots have been a way for us to evaluate the products. We knew that we needed to do that right from the get-go this year. Kristen and her team during the month of November will be meeting with all of the principals and teachers who have been working with the pilots, because we wanted to implement these with a great level of fidelity. And the reason for that is we have to know whether they work or not. This data will be talked about and shared. It will become a platform for the Personalized Learning Steering Committee to make decisions about what will be approved for supplemental resources for Peoria Unified for classroom use, much like a textbook would have, or in the past, a novel set. We've had those, and now this is kind of the new way to look at resources and tools. So the Personalized Learning Steering Committee will essentially help us look at that data and serve as a clearinghouse. So we're making good decisions about what we want our resource mix to look like for Peoria Unified. So in terms of the cost, and I know there's been some questions associated with this, so I wanted to make some comments and highlight some of the things that, in my experience, I think are important to note. First of all, Education Elements entered a 2-year contract with us for $202,000. This year, there's $75,000 that's remaining. All of those funds will be used directly for professional development for principals, coaches, and others. The new prize that we also received, I would like to talk to our Personalized Learning Steering Committee, because I want to explore those teachers that are exemplars, that are taking those risks for us to be able to take advantage of direct professional development with this group. We did spend money on summit registration last spring. Again, I've talked a little bit about that. We do have some funds with some grant money, and it's important to mention grants because Cheryl Zeese works with us, and she has been doing all she can to be out there supporting new technologies for our classrooms. In fact, even give another shout out to Cheyenne. They entered into a school competition award and just received $40,000 in technology for students just for Cheyenne. So there's a lot that we're doing, again, to sustain us over time through various grants and competition. One thing I did want to note is we have purchased almost $7.2 million, and John gave me the exact number, 14,444 devices that came from that bond that has been deployed. I think I wanted to pause here and make a point about this. In my past experience, we really looked to a district next to us. This was in Missouri. But we looked to a district next to us that leapt ahead of us in trying to provide one-on-one, and we wanted to learn from their mistakes with that level of deployment. They told us, do not just buy the technology and give it to kids and teachers. And so we took that to heart, and we generated a plan, and we did something a little bit different than Peoria. But we began to talk about learning and what we were going to do with the devices before they were deployed. In our case, they're kind of going hand in hand, but that's what's so essential about personalized learning and training our teachers, not only in a new way to do business in classrooms, but even more importantly, how can we really get students to integrate, take ownership, use the devices 24/7 to knock down the walls of the traditional classroom and expand their learning opportunities 24/7. So one thing I really appreciate from Peoria, and I'm new, but I do appreciate that we have some degree of a plan and we're building our infrastructure so that we can actually guarantee that $7.2 million that we've spent on these devices are actually being employed and being used in our classrooms with teachers and students engaged in the teaching and learning process. Okay. Another question that we did receive was, how can we share with our community the benefits of personalized learning? One answer is our kids are helping us do that on a daily basis. Because they're able to access these resources 24/7, we have parents telling us, oh, my kid is bringing this home and making this or using these digital tools. In fact, I was talking to Kara, who is one of our content coaches. Her daughter started kindergarten. It was very hard on her. But her daughter was participating with the tool in her classroom and came home very excited, not only to share it with her mom, but to tell her all that she was learning. And that's at kindergarten. So we're very excited that some of this is coming from our kids. That said, we know we have a lot more to do. Obviously, presenting here tonight is helpful to us in terms of sharing with you what we're trying to accomplish with personalized learning. We do have a November presentation at our parent partnership. I know many of you attend that, so we're looking forward to that. Some of our parent-teacher conferences were all about personalized learning, and some of our schools are starting to share with parents what's called power hours. And that means that grade levels are bringing parents in to talk about what they're trying to do to integrate technology in their classrooms for a more personalized learning approach. So that gives you some information associated with our community outreach. And we know we have a lot more work to do in that. Finally, I do know that one question was, how much is this going to cost us for 2018, 2019? I would love right now to give you a really large figure so that we can do an ELA or reading adoption. The reason I say that is that's going to be really hard to answer, because almost everything that I was a part of last year in a neighboring district when we did an adoption, and that's an example of one, comes with a substantial amount of digital tools, and support. So as we make this transformation, and what we see across the country, people are moving away from a textbook. We might have some resources that are textbooks, but more and more companies, even these significantly large ones, like HMH, Pearson, et cetera, have adoptions and tools that really align to personalized learning, because we certainly aren't the only ones trying to make a difference in terms of making learning in classrooms more meaningful and more engaging for students. Comments, questions?
Well, actually, first of all, I wanted to thank you for the presentation, and I wanted to thank you for your offer to meet with the governing board to talk about personalized learning. I'm sorry I was not able to take you up on it before the meeting, but I definitely will take you up on it.
Absolutely.
So,
I'd
thank
love
you.
to do it.
Thank you so much.
When you see it, I think it makes, when you see what the teachers and kids are trying to do and working on, it's just made a huge difference for me.
Okay. Well, before we go to board discussion, we do have one public comment, and that is Ray Conley. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Pingarelli, Dr. Stifler, and governing board members. I am the principal at Sunset Heights, and I just want to echo what everybody else has said here tonight. Personalized learning at first was a little scary for our staff. We didn't know how that was going to go across. And the thing that I think has made a big difference when Dr. Stifler brought it to us is that it does allow teachers to take risks, and they do that for their children. So as we are only a 4-year-old school, some of the comments that we've gotten from parents that are negative at times is, gosh, I wish that you were pushing the kids a little bit more. And we have always thought that we've pushed our kids, but this gives us a wonderful avenue to really take those kiddos who are already high and move them further along in a way that doesn't cause the teacher to have to spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to plan all that. Because as you know, our teachers work incredibly hard and there's only so many hours in the day. So having this personalized learning makes a huge difference to them, bringing that digital content into their classrooms so that the kids have something that they can be doing beyond just that whole group instruction and helping the kids to really move forward. We've shared all of this information with our site council. They are behind it 100%. I think it was mentioned earlier about parent-teacher conferences. Many of the parents learned a lot about digital content and what's going on with personalized learning at those conferences. And it's an exciting thing to walk into a classroom and you see kids completely engaged because they are so excited about what they're doing. Not that they haven't always been excited about being in the classroom, but it's just a different way of learning. And I think we're hitting a lot of our kiddos, and it does allow our teachers to work more closely with those that are struggling. So even though those children can certainly get on the digital content and they're working on the laptops or the computers, it allows the teacher to work more closely with those students that need a little bit of extra help. So I think at Sunset Heights anyway, we're very, very pleased and excited about everything that we've been able to do, and many of our schools, I would say 100% of our schools are all excited about the same as well. So just wanted to have the opportunity to say how thrilled we are with all of this digital content. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'll start out I guess I'll start with you, Mrs. Connect, if you're ready to.
Sure. I just have a few comments. Mr. Schaff, you didn't. One thing you didn't share is how creative you have been about incentivizing the risk-taking and the professional development opportunities for your staff. And the staff members that I met were truly very excited about this. And And if you haven't had a chance to share that with the other principals, I think it's some great ideas that they might benefit from. When I taught a long time ago, everything was pretty much direct instruction, and I would be frustrated with how do you teach initiative, and how do you teach problem solving, and how do you truly meet the needs, the differentiated needs of kids at different skill levels. And so when I was touring the two schools this last week, I felt like I wanted another chance to go back and try teaching this way, because it really lends itself to addressing some of those issues. It was very exciting. Clearly, positive energy. I mean, you could just feel positive energy, because I think everybody was feeling like they had the ability to address their own needs and get them met. So it's funny, because two pieces of anti-public school rhetoric that we hear. One is that if Benjamin Franklin came back in 2017, the only thing he'd recognize is schools. Well, I'm telling you, he wouldn't recognize it, because it is so different from the way it was even a decade ago. And it's so very exciting. And the other one is, well, school districts, they just deliver education one size fits all. Well, no, we don't. And in fact, I'm very happy that this school district is taking leaps and bounds to try and make sure that we're not doing that we are meeting kids where they are and delivering the services that they need to be successful. Another thing that's really positive, students learn from watching the adults in their lives exhibit certain habits, and risk-taking is one of those habits that we want students to adopt. And so if our teachers are doing that, taking the risk, failing sometimes, and learning to do better, that is a very helpful thing. I think that's all that I have to say, other than if we can clone Ms. Watson, we really should try to do that. She's an amazing young dynamo. And I know my colleagues have other things to say, but I know that our job on the school board is to find ways to help all levels of this school district to be successful. So I hope that we are encouraged as a board to find ways to make Dr. Bell successful, so she can make our principals successful, so they can make their teachers successful, so we can help our students be successful. One last thing. I love the idea of individualized instruction, but I often hear it immediately equated with one-to-one devices. And I just want to reiterate that the technology is a big component of this, but it's not necessarily the only component. That different size groupings and different seating and different manipulatives or whatever it is are also components. And I think going back to individualization, different students relate better to certain delivery models, and it's our job as professional educators, your job as professional educators, to find out what that is and make it work for every kid. So thank you for everybody's efforts.
Thank you. Mrs. Sejar Martinez?
Thank you very much for the presentation and everybody who's put in those efforts. First, I did my student teaching at Cheyenne, and so it's great to see you come in and carry on that mission of innovation. So thank you so much, and I look forward to the tour there, going back to where I started. So. With that being said, I really do like what I see with the kids. When I went on the patron tour, there was a group of fourth graders that were in a cluster, and they were all doing different things, and I asked them specifically, what are you doing? What do you like? And they all told me that they had the choice to do what they wanted aligned to at their level. One was doing science on a paper pencil, one had a laptop, and said, how does it feel to have that choice? And they said, it feels good. And some things don't need to be expanded, but when a student says it feels good, we're on the right track. So I appreciate that. With my lens and my experience here in the district, and it started in 2006, I was part of the rollout of instructional units I know I've seen some information sent to us about the professional development. How do instructional units fit into personalized learning, blended learning? Will the district be looking at new curriculum and rewriting it? How will it look different? We'll start there.
I can answer that. One of the things that we need to make sure that we continue to focus on is we always start with the outcome. So in Arizona, we're blessed by our state with a set of standards that are supposed to outline what all students must know and be able to do. So that's question one. How we go about making that happen is the whole idea of personalized instruction. We have our units of study that's associated with those standards. Those are available for teachers, the I can or I will statements that we still see in our classroom, because we have to ensure that all of the students master those standards. So it's kind of the how we get there, and therein lies the blending. So some of our kids, and you know this from your teaching experience as well, not all of our kids are going to enter into a grade level, 6th grade, at that particular grade level. So we have some tools to do that differentiation that we're talking about. If that kid is reading at a 4th grade level, then we have options for that student, knowing that all of those kids have to access those grade level standards. Will our curriculum look different over time? It could. Some districts can have adopted a particular vehicle for the curriculum, and there's some districts in Arizona that have done that. We are not there yet. We do have our well-developed and articulated curriculum that will continue to be in place, and we'll certainly let our governing board know when, well, you have to approve it, but know when those adoptions occur and what those adoptions will look like in classrooms. So part of the work of the Personalized Learning Steering Committee and the review of all of these resources will be to name, if you will, what tools will be used for Tier 1 instruction, which is for all kids, and are there tools for interventions, remediations, and extensions for Tier 2 and Tier 3 that will also be used in addition to standards or tools that promote those standards and that learning at that grade level for all kids. So over time, I think that's a decision that our district will be making as we move forward into personalized learning. I don't think we're there to say this is exactly what it's going to look like. And my guess is it'll be a blended approach.
Thank you for highlighting that. I wanted to circle back to a couple of your comments. You stated that you started with the outcome. This directly aligns to my concern with, as a strategic process, we as a governing board and administration have not identified an outcome. So with the amount of funds being spent in sustainability, that is something we definitely need to recircle. I like the fact that you are including an administration. That was one of my questions, and teachers in part of this process. It's obviously, it's going to take a lot of time to see where this is headed. So when I think about time and preparation, the personalized learning and blended learning is going to take time for teachers to do the pre-work. So with the early releases on Mondays, I would like to see how that is going to continue to support that effort so that they are given teacher-protected time to do all that pre-work. With your history, Dr. Stifler, I know in Yuma you raised class sizes so that we could give teachers more money. With personalized and blended learning, will we be increasing class size for that potential future?
I would not say that we raised class sizes so that we could do this. I mean, we had a problem of high class sizes, and so how are we going to address it? I would flip that. There was no trade-off in order to raise class size. In my previous district, the money that was used to do was paid out of intervention funds, the Title I monies, and we always lived within those budgets. And those budgets varied, and when we had the money to spend on that, we would, and when we didn't, we wouldn't. But so I just need to flip that. We didn't raise class size so that we could pay for that.
Thank you for clarifying that. So you mentioned Title I funds, and then you also brought up Title I funds. So when we're looking at choosing resources from Title I bucket, we could potentially use it for technology or resources, or we can use staff to lower class size. Is that a fair statement?
We can certainly buy staff. Class size, it's technically possible. It's not usually what's Title I, but when you have, say, a reading intervention teacher, that has the effect of lowering class size, but you can't, you don't, I'm not saying it's impossible, but you don't buy a third grade teacher, for instance, out of Title I, right? That would be very hard to get approved to do.
Okay.
Because that's considered, that would be supplanting, and that's our responsibility to do anyway. So Title I funds are supplemental.
Okay, thank you for that. So I apologize, I'm getting my thoughts here.
Let me kind of answer one thing. I don't know if it was a question or not, but I want it to be. We are working already on providing a lot of resources. I probably need to do a better job of communicating what we are doing in terms of building that infrastructure for personalized learning associated with professional development. Connie Whitty and others on our team are making huge strides, I think, in building resources. And again, it's kind of that infrastructure. So there's quite a few videos, personalized learning for teachers, if you will, that they are able to access 24/7. We have provided time for teachers at sites and certainly principals. We're trying to model that personalized approach with adults across the system. So it's a really good question in terms of how do we give teachers time to learn. And so we are, as a part of that infrastructure for professional development, we are trying to build and access additional resources for that learning. So I'll do a better job at communicating the Modified Monday options and certainly sharing with you specifically what our teachers' choices are in terms of accessing that support. It's a very good question.
Thank you. And the last comment or question regarding this topic is, since all the students will be at different levels, I think about all we're asking our teachers to do in regards to grading, grade level standards, and then ultimately tying it back to AZ merit, because we can't ignore the fact, even though it's one data point, our district is perceived one way or the other for not supporting what the state is requiring. So when I look at grade proficiency and standards, what are your thought process on how that is going to affect where we head to meeting the state recommendation?
Okay, so kind of backing up in my use of the word outcome. We might have been on the same page or not. When I say we start with the outcome, I really mean the learning target. We cannot just throw kids on a device and have them go at it. We have to be scientific, if you will, and intentional in terms of what we're doing in our classrooms. So those state standards broken into learning targets really set the stage for what we're trying to achieve in classrooms. We're also measuring that, doing a dipstick, if you will, from comprehensive assessments so that we know we're seeing growth or lack thereof and can make those interventions and have those conversations at school levels with principals, et cetera. So we have to pay attention to how we are graded in the state of Arizona, because it communicates to our public some level of a quality standard at our schools. So we pay attention to that. Wendy helps us pay a lot of attention to that. And with that being said, we dig deep to really understand what schools need. A really good example is a lengthy meeting this morning at Kellis High School, where we worked with the principal and 2 instructional coaches to really dig deep into that data to determine what are those differentiated needs for the kids that need to take place so that we can make sure we are fully engaged in school improvement.
Thank you for that. I look forward to hearing what the teachers keep bringing to us, positive and opportunities that the governing continue to support you as a whole. And the last comment is in regards to technology. It looks like we have made a great investment in technology, and I know that my printer at home is a good printer, but it doesn't work. And there are funds that we have to sustain that technology. So last I heard when Mr. Hicks said in a budget at the very beginning back in January was we don't have a contingency plan if there's an emergency. With bond money and capital, these types of purchases are done under the bond bucket. What's our contingency plan if these devices continue to break or will break? Because that's inevitable.
Well, and I think that was also a Kellis conversation with Jeff this morning, and one that takes us into the grant land. Because in Arizona, we don't have the funds that we need to support not only teaching and learning, but our facilities, et cetera. So we have to get very creative about how we move forward with this infrastructure. And so we are exploring opportunities. Our principals are stepping out and competing in contests and applying for grants. We do know that sometimes once we get a grant, and Kellis is a good example of that one-to-one initiative for freshmen, that once those are exhausted, that he's going to have to replace that. So there's always this next steps and trying to stay ahead of that. So we don't have any easy answers for that. But I do believe that there's a trade-off, and sometimes things happen like personalized learning, like digital resources for kids. What can happen is we hope, and this is a really good example about your printer, we would hope that there would be a decrease of cost associated with printing. So we're looking for those trade-offs. I don't think we're there yet to see a lot of impact on that, but I'm confident that we will over time. In terms of this is the old way we did business, it cost us this, and now we have a new way to do business, so we should see some savings as we move into personalized learning.
Thank you. That's it for now.
Mr. Sandoval?
Thank you so much in my head with regard to this subject. Dale, you have quite the reputation within the good reputation from a leadership. let me be clear there. I have a good friend who's a longtime teacher there at Sun Valley, and her daughter is teaching there now. So thank you for your leadership. That said, as we take a look at, I've always talked and certainly a proponent of blended or personalized learning. Visited some of the classrooms at Heritage Elementary with Miss Brody, where I was able to kind of experience some of what they're doing on that campus. I think for me, one of the things that certainly I've always charged the district with, and I think we would all agree as a board, is always understanding and making sure that we're looking at what may be coming around the corner, whether it's curriculum or technology and how we integrate that into the classroom, and really even the changing faces of our student population, and certainly varied learning barriers, whether it be from an emotional perspective, cultural perspective. There are just so many variables, if you will, so many dynamics that I think we have access to and are able to be knowledgeable about, which means that now we're accountable to make sure that when we take a look at our target audience, which are our students, having that understanding and adapting to those needs, so we're talking to them, not at them, so they come to school every day inspired. You talked about some of the smiles and the students who have, maybe they were somewhat quiet or introverts, and after going through this experience, the ability for the teacher, I think it was one of the teachers talked about her ability to really, I took it as develop relationships, with her kids in her class, which is critical as we talk about the learning experience. So again, our ability to continue to innovate and adapt to the needs of our students. Fundamentally, when we take a look at, you're talking about outcomes earlier, or your outcome, and I would agree with Ms. Seja Martinez that I think as we take a look at our strategic plan and really further define it, but I think fundamentally our goal here is to ensure the success of all of our students within this district, and for us to think forwardly and to truly acknowledge, our student population and ensure that we put them in positions to succeed, uphold our mantra of every student every day. This personalized learning, blended learning, certainly protocol, process, program, however we want to label it, is one, for me that, again, just allows us to stay ahead of the curve, and again, allows us to put all of those students, regardless of what zip code you live in, to be successful through the halls of PUSD. That said, Dr. Bell, when we talk about metrics, and I know we really didn't dive into that too deeply here this evening, but, it would be great to understand, even from a social emotional perspective, but also just from an overall, assessment perspective, students who maybe were, a C student and now are a B student as a result, of this, again, I'm not sure how to label it, protocol, process, program. It would be great to understand, some of those stories, because I'm certain they're out there, without question. But I would agree, the ability for us, or really the thoughtfulness and focus for us as a district to ensure that our teachers are successful in this regard as well. Making sure that they are comfortable and confident, as we integrate such a program, if you will, into their classroom, is just as important. A teacher's certainly ethos, or how he or she enters a classroom, certainly impacts that learning experience for our students. So for me, as we move forward, it'd be great to, really understand, those metrics and how we're doing. But I definitely applaud you, Dr. Bell, Kristen, on the curriculum side, Dale, and all your, associates, counterparts, leaders, principals throughout the district, for, thinking outside the box a little bit. I've always said, every campus, has its own story. So this enables us, certainly you, as leaders, to make sure that you can integrate, what makes most sense for your student population to ensure their success. So thank you.
Mrs. Doan?
Well, see if I can pare this down a little bit. I have been very interested in personalized learning long before it was called that. When I was still in school, I was very interested in that because you can see in any class that you're in that there are students at different level. And I would be called on to help students because I would finish my work first. And instead of progressing, then I was kind of called on to help other students. And it didn't, I'm not saying that bothered me, but I'm saying I could see the need at that time. So it's also a very complicated situation. That's why I don't think it really got moved on until there were a lot of computers. Computers became everyday. So some of the issues, just one question I have, just a quick question is, how does the teacher select? Is it recommended by the program what to do for each student?
if you remember the high school students, that's probably, he was stating a really good example. A lot of the digital resources that we use specifically to differentiate when they're not at various levels offers an online pre-assessment. That pre-assessment will level the student, whether that's mathematics or whatever it is that we're looking for. We're using some tools in Algebra 1 as an example to kind of go after the needed differentiation, maybe from kids who haven't been as successful in middle school mathematics, that go to high school, et cetera. So we level the kids knowing that they have to access that grade level curriculum, but also knowing they may need review and support with concepts at 7th and 8th grade when they may not have been as successful in mathematics. So these sophisticated digital tools can level students in algebra concepts, as an example. And so while they're on a system, and again, most of these are 24/7, students can access and review used for remediation, differentiation, and can go back and pick up concepts that they need additional work on. The system will give us that data. It gives the teacher the data on how that kid is doing. It gives us the data on how the system is responding to the kids and how the kids are moving. That's kind of the program evaluation component on our end that Kristen and her team are working on. But from a teacher point of view, once I understand that Noah is not making adequate progress, I may need to pull him and have that one-on-one or small group time to clarify misconceptions or misunderstandings about that concept before he goes back into the system. So it's kind of a sophisticated effort, if you will, but the systems do a lot for us in terms of giving that data to teachers about individual student progress.
Okay, thank you. Now, regarding that, I'm going to ask a very unpopular question because I want it in the public. I want the answer in the public. All right, now as far as the data that is requested, are there any questions regarding student home life in the requested data?
No, these would be academic tools associated with students mastering those academic learning targets that we're required to teach them.
Excellent. Okay. I had to ask that because I've been asked, and I wanted the answer in public. It's hard when everybody doesn't see the programs. They don't see what's going on. And everybody's a little leery of technology, you know. Well, not everybody. But
and I think
some
that the onus on us to be sharing that with parents, to show them exactly what those are, with parent-teacher conferences, those power hours, we have to really build our communications and opportunities for our community to understand what we're trying to do.
Okay.
It's a good point.
That's good. And I would like to Ms. Sehar Martinez's point, I am concerned with being able to keep this going once we get it going. I don't know what the classes would look like if the money failed for this. It is not free by any means. And I want to be like kept up to date on how we're doing with that. I think that probably our teachers are concerned with that, and our administrators very concerned with that. And another point I would like to make is everybody getting this? It's all across the board?
It's all across the board in terms of all schools are definitely taking next steps.
Okay.
It could look different at different schools and different classrooms, but the whole effort is an impetus to begin making personalized learning a reality for kids. And so there might be some buildings that are ahead of others, but it is that level of, and I think Ms. Connect pointed it out to Dale, that effort of principal collaboration is Steve and his team's effort and principal meetings so that we can begin to share what's working and how we can everyone could take those next steps a little quicker.
Oh, and do parents have access to their students on their device or whatever if they sign in at home?
Yes, we do have a parent communication piece. I don't know, John, as much about that as, I don't know that parents can sign on, kids can sign on.
Well,
we also have a pretty substantial, like at Kellis, I know Jeff and his team did a lot of parent communication before the deployment of those devices in terms of explaining that the kids had to be on our Wi-Fi, et cetera, for those safety precautions. I also know that when we are meeting with parents and parent-teacher conferences, there are reports that can be shared by teachers with parents about those student progress. Again, it kind of monitors kids, and I'm well aware, and I think you saw it a little bit in Dawn's presentation where students were tracking their own progress.
right. And I was just thinking that would be a wonderful tool for parents to be able to see the real deal, if they could. Also,
Mrs. Stone, may I answer one of your questions, please? On the 2012 bond, the straight-up answer on that is that bought the devices. That's how all districts in the state, I believe, I'm not aware of any district in the state that's not using bond money to buy devices, right? Regarding the curriculum, that fits in the regular budget in all districts, right? But there is not a plan in our district right now, I don't want to pretend that there is, when the 2012 bond money is out to replace those computers. But there's not one in Dysart or Deer Valley or Mesa or PV because they're in the same boat regarding that. Now, if the legislature filled back up the capital funding, there would be enough money to do that. But I just want to be clear on the content piece, that always has to fit in the regular budget. But there is no place, there is no realistic way within our capital budget to put the devices, the computers. And I also want to say that decision was made in 2012 to do that, right? So to renew that is a very difficult prospect that is facing us and all the other school districts in the state. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I have one more question about with special education. And we know that's completely, that's always been more or less individualized with the IEPs and stuff. And I was wondering if you see in the future perhaps additional mainstreaming of special needs children.
Absolutely. One of the things we're already seeing, and I keep coming back to Kellis, probably because I was there today, but we do see a lot more options for kids to collaborate with other kids with peer-to-peer support of students. We also see students at various levels working in the same system because of the sophistication of these digital devices. So today, when we were doing our walkthroughs at Kellis, we saw a great deal of that, and it's inspiring.
That's excellent. I very much like to see the special needs groups blended, in with.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do, Ms. Doan.
Mainstream.
Not the one, but. The other thing that we're doing is, it's not for gen ed kids, it's for all kids. Right. And these digital tools can be of great benefit to helping our special education access grade level content while also providing the support or scaffolding that's needed. So I look forward to possibly taking you, if that's your interest, to see some of that, because again, it's inspiring.
I would love to see some of that. And I guess basically I'm very interested in doing this, and I'm just hoping all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed and it's available. And I'd like to see I'd be interested in having a look at different curriculum and stuff that we're doing with this.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I have, actually, I was the one that asked for this to be put on the agenda, and I do appreciate your help in informing the board about what personalized learning is. Being a non-educator, it is informative, and again, I will take you up on your one-on-one in the future, so thank you.
Perfect.
I started to look at this, and I started to look at the cost associated with it. Do you know at this time what the cost that we have spent on personalized learning?
I can't say totally. I think Mr. Hicks provided some information and some attachments. The ones that I commented on during the presentation had to do with things that either I've been a part of or know that our principals or members of our personalized learning steering committee have attended. Again, it's hard for me to say that this is what it cost and this is what it will cost. And again, I think the reason for that is this trend across the country for the use of digital tools and technologies. And even with future adoptions, we'll see, we're not going to be able to separate out, okay, this is what the digital tool is costing, because all of these companies are moving towards these digital platforms. So that's a very difficult question to answer. I think as we move forward, working with personalized learning committee, our administrators, teachers, in terms of the adoptions, the resource mix, those will be information I can get to the board so that we're understanding as we move forward what these curriculum resources are costing us, what professional development options that are available, and what we're looking for as we kind of change the face of what we're doing. Professional development is another good example, because if we're personalizing learning for teachers and using digital tools for professional development, there'll be less cost in terms of pulling teachers from buildings, them traveling a great deal. We're already getting feedback, and I think you all have been a part of that as well, in terms of how can we better serve our teachers across our district. So we're really working pretty hard on that as well.
Okay. And I know I had talked to Dr. Stifler about this. When I started to look into the cost myself, and I did have the attachments put on, I looked at the three companies, Educational Elements, Achieve 3000, and Imagine Learning. And the costs at that point that I could see, and thanks to Mr. Hicks for providing those to me, was about $409,000. So, and in that, there was a trip for $34,000, and I did have that attachment put on. And that was a trip for 20-some people to go to San Francisco to have training for educational elements. Do you know out of that list how many were teachers, or were they all administrators?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can get you that.
Okay.
I think 4 were teachers, 3 or 4. Pioneer took teachers, the rest were administrators.
Okay.
Pioneer, the district, excuse me, Mrs. Pingarelli, members of the board, The original plan was to send 6 or 8, I can't recall the number, and Mr. Kegel was asked to find people to do that. Then other schools out of their own budgets put together plans to take. And so, for instance, I know that Pioneer took teachers. In a couple cases, a principal and an assistant principal went together. Some places just an assistant principal went, and they did that out of their own site budgets. But I believe it was only 3 or 4 teachers who went.
Okay. If they did not use it for their site budget, from their site budget, it would have gone to other areas of their school. My problem with that is that there was 20-some
It was a
people
larger
that had
number than I
gone.
was comfortable
In
with.
corporate America, you would never, ever send that many people to go on a trip. That was one concern. And I just did write a couple of questions down. And being concerned about the $408,000 that was spent without adequately informing the governing board. And that's the other thing, is the governing board, this was never brought to the governing board to discuss. We had a study session where Dr. Stifler had mentioned that sites were going to be, he was giving them free rein to try a few things. So that's why I was a little bit stunned when I seen the cost on this. But to be clear, my definition of adequately informing means not burying it in a consent agenda or summarizing on a spreadsheet as a general spending category, but to bring to the board. I was given a 2-page kind of guideline document this morning because it was felt that there was, and I should say, for lack of a better term, Wild West spending on personalized learning without it coming to the governing board and without an updated strategic plan. So that's one of my main concerns. And in terms of the privacy issues, there was 2 pilot programs, one from Copperwood, and the other pilot program you mentioned for the rest of the district. If you go on the Imagine Learning privacy policy and you Google it, you'll find that it says the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, protects children under the age of 13. School officials and teachers are authorized under COPPA to provide consent on behalf of parents. Therefore, Imagine Learning does not obtain parental consent directly. And they go on to state the kind of personal information that they do collect. They collect first name, last name, grade level, language, student number, student username, password, organization number, SSO, which is single sign-on. And this is all without parents even knowing that their children's data is shared. And that goes to Imagine Learning is in Utah. I have a concern with that. And the other one is Achieve 3000, and anybody can go on and Google Achieve 3000 privacy policy. They go on to state that they are looking at student data, including class code, room number, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, disability, and other information. That one also does not need to have parent permission on that. They state that parents can go on there and request information, but I have an issue. The board is a representation of the community. We are voted in to represent the entire community. A big part of it is is parents and students. So I have an issue with this not being brought to the governing board when students are having all of this data collected on them without parents' permission. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
John may be able to help me out with this. Part of that issue of us, when we approve a product, a digital product particularly, in our school district, is it goes through these cycles. And so we are responsible ourselves to upload the student information. So it doesn't, like, we have Synergy as an example. That is our student information system, if you will. These would be similar in that once we bring the tool and decide that we're going to use that tool, then it's actually Jill Thomas who owns our student data, and the product becomes one that we own, if you will, for however long that agreement is. So I'm going to let John kind of comment
Ms. Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler, I can add a little bit to that. We always look at the privacy policies of all these online companies. We've been doing that for quite a while, actually. And we always take the approach of providing the absolute minimal data that's required to operate the system. And so we do not, when we set up the, to use a technical term, the integration of our student information system with, let's say, Achieve 3000, pardon me, or Imagine Learning, we do not supply any socioeconomic status or any race information. All we provide is student rostering information so that when the teachers and the students go to access the product, they can, the product presents that class as a unit to the teacher. And so the teacher doesn't have to go in and create all the accounts herself or himself. And so we provide the absolute minimum data or information that we can so that the product can operate. We sometimes have conversations with the vendors about, well, why do you need this? And it's optional. And something that we would object to providing is virtually always optional, and so we don't provide it.
Well, thank you very much. And what happens with the data? Do we have any type of oversight, like on this pilot program, if we do not continue with it? Do we have the ability to know that they have destroyed all of our student information data?
Well, what we do, and that's actually a very, what am I trying to say, new area that districts are looking at all over the state and all over the country in terms of what's the best way to contractually protect ourselves in that regard. What we do with all of our vendors is if we go to terminate a pilot, then we basically communicate with them, and at that point it becomes a combination of verbal and in writing emails and so forth for them to ascertain that they've deleted the data that we have, that they have rather from us. What we're currently looking at is a standard set of contractual language that we can use, and we're working actually or collaborating with some other districts on this, some standard data that we could use to make, to require all vendors with whom we establish a relationship like this to sign at the beginning of the relationship that basically protects that. What we do also when we look at their privacy and security documents is we look for things that say, well, what happens when you terminate the arrangement with us? And in many cases, not every single case, it will say that within 30 days we will return your data, or within some period of time after notification, or words to that effect. So we do pay attention to that. It's an evolving area in terms of what's the right way to contractually enforce it, and we're working with other people to figure out what the best way to do that is. But in the meantime, and we really, actually at this point, rarely terminate. We haven't terminated many of these things, but when we do, it's a matter of just discussing with them and making sure that they can give us assurance that they've deleted the data.
Thank you very much. And with Imagine Learning is the pilot program. It says in their our contract with them that they've discussed with us the probability of purchasing it says has been explored. So we are given 15 days after the end of the pilot to either purchase or not purchase. Mr. Hicks, do you know what the price is for that program if we decide to purchase it for the entire school district?
Me personally, Madam President, members of the board, I do not know that price.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I as a non-educator, I'm not, it sounds like the blended personalized learning is a very good thing. And I'm not disagreeing with that. As a board member, what I have issue with is the cost that is being spent without bringing it to the boards for the board's approval. That one is concerning to me, especially when we do not have an updated strategic plan and where we're going. So that is my main concern. I appreciate your information, Mr. Gay, on the privacy issue. It was concerning when I looked that up, so I appreciate it. And then just to get everything out, I know Dr. Stifler has had a lot of interaction with Imagine Learning in the past at Yuma Elementary. And I did see your video that you made for them. You were right, it was you were very dramatic. So.
I think you probably also saw that there were other school districts involved in that video.
I didn't, I looked at just yours.
Okay.
It was, and I didn't know if you wanted to clarify your association
I would clarify
with
on there.
them.
So, yes, I would. Thank you. Imagine Learning was one of the many, many programs. Just like here, we have many, many programs. We're focusing on 2 or 3 tonight, but we have 15 or 20 programs running in our school district. Imagine Learning was one of the programs that we used in my former district. The Arizona Department of Education ran a grant. They purchased, this would be maybe 3 years ago, I believe so, it might be 4 years ago, or a pilot, and they ran the study in Douglas, in Nogales, in Phoenix L, I think in Isaac, but I'm not certain, and in Yuma. So this was a study done by the Department of Education. And it was specifically for, does this help students who are second language learners learn faster? And the results were good, and we were proud of that as our district, and other districts were as well. And we made a video to boast on that, and we let Imagine Learning help us with that. If you look at the video, so that we filmed it in the boardroom, I mean, there was no, so the district didn't get any money for making the video. Nobody who appeared in the video got any money for making the video. That's what happened regarding that. We had many, many, many programs, and as we have here. When I first got here, I was asked, what are some programs that work? And why would I reveal that? These programs work. We have seen that they've worked, and I've shared those with people, those ideas. But I did not require anybody to buy any of those or do any of that.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Ms. Pingerelli?
Yes.
I have one more question. Perhaps Mr. Gay could answer. I know that with Imagine Learning, they don't sell the information. Is there a possibility of any partners getting a hold of the information? Is there policy and protections for our students with that?
Well, just about all vendors employ third parties to do certain things. You know, like they may contract with a subcontractor to provide a piece of software that's used inside of their software, for example. Yes. And in order sometimes to troubleshoot the problems they may run into, they will share information with those third parties. Their privacy language virtually always says something about that, and it says that they do not share any personally identifiable information with third parties except insofar as to make the product work. and those third parties are held to the same, by them, are held to the same level of privacy protection as their own employees are. That's the standard way that they operate, and we always look at the privacy language to see if they say something like that in their documents, and they typically do.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gay, one more question for you, sir. Thank you. So I'm certain that we've had other partners where we've integrated systems which, where data was, kept, shared, et cetera. And maybe these partners have, they've been invited to leave or we're no longer partners with them. My question is, if this has happened before, where data was shared, we exited a relationship, are we following the same protocol to ensure that all the data that is shared is safe with this current partner, the Imagine Learning partner?
I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer that, sir. Members of the board, Dr. Stifler and Madam President. We haven't, since I've been here, we haven't, so let me just make a technical differentiation for just a second. Most of the software that we use, until very recently, we've had all the data here. So we're just now going into the act of using solutions that actually use data as opposed to just content that we're buying from somebody, but systems that use data to operate. We're just really getting into that sort of software as a service or cloud-based solutions pretty recently. And so we've not had to terminate any relationships that I'm aware of. I'm looking at my colleagues that have been here longer than I have, and I'm looking at Mike. I don't think we've had to terminate any of those relationships yet.
Okay.
But as I mentioned earlier, what we do though is we make sure, in fact, I can think of one product, I won't mention the name because I don't want to make it about that product, but this was probably less than a year after I started, and it's a hosted solution. It's not an instructional solution, but it's a hosted solution that does contain student information. And we really had some very vigorous conversation with them to ensure at the beginning that we always had complete access to the data that they have on their servers that's about our students, so that they can't, for some reason, hoard that data and keep it from us. And so at the same time, we had the conversation that said that if it comes to the point where we terminate the relationship for whatever reason, we expect to have assurance from your company that the data is deleted from your servers, made available to us to retrieve, first of all, and deleted from your servers within 30 days. And they agreed to that. And so, as I said, it's an area, I guess, commercial companies have been dealing with this a little bit sooner than we have, but it's an area where we're discussing what is the best ironclad way to guarantee that happens. We're handling it on a case-by-case basis at the present time, in terms of discussing with the vendors before we enter into the relationship exactly how they intend to do that, should we terminate the relationship. But we haven't had to terminate one since I've been here, and so we haven't really had to put that to the test yet.
Gotcha, good, thank you. And one last statement for you, Dr. Bell. There's no doubt that, when we talk about change, there's an expense, whether it's human capital, or certainly financial. That said, I absolutely agree with President Pingarelli. I mean, as a board, one of our charge, and certainly as a district, is to ensure that we are fiscally responsible, with our students' money, right? But what would be interesting to see is a couple things, where the district may have gone through a particular change in the past, what that may have looked like from a budgetary standpoint to onboard a new protocol, if you will, and that's lack of a better term. And the other side, and within the same breath of that same conversation, it'd also be interesting to understand what the expense would be, if we didn't innovate. If we didn't, ensure that, we're, integrating this technology, which, certainly our students, it's their everyday life, on a laptop or a cell phone. what that would look like. It's would we be doing our students a disservice? And quite frankly, technology, even in the workplace, continues to change every day. So, the more that we put our students in a position to be successful, after leaving these walls, I think, we'd all agree, that the personal learning is a good thing. But I guess when you take a look at the two expenses, obviously on the front end, and then, what it may look like on the back end as well, if that makes sense. And I think that gets into some of the metrics that we were talking about earlier. Thank you.
Mrs. Pingerelli?
Yes.
Since David highlighted, or Mr. Sandoval highlighted fiscal responsibility, I was looking at my notes and the questions that I asked about the carryover forward bond rates, the bond money, and we spent quite a bit. So I watched the last presentation and the carryover forward, and I asked for information regarding carryover forward balance since 2014, and it has decreased. If we look at fiscal year 2017 it was 1.2%, now it's 0.6%. When I looked at this information of budget, this is where I look at bonds in general. It's my industry. When we have a bond, there's a rating, and if you don't have, bond is debt, and if you don't have good credit, then that affects your bond. And so to this point, I received a statement from Mr. Hicks, and these are just estimates, so it could go one way or the other. But if we don't have good credit and it continues to go down, we keep spending what little contingency plan we have, he would estimate that the last bond sale that we just had would cost us $50,000 less if we had a higher credit rating. So when I look at 2014 at 1.2% carryover rate, and now we're at 0.6, we're going in the different direction, even though the state is part of that issue, but we as a governing board have a responsibility to fiscal responsibility and district administration and how we spend that money with no strategic plan and no contingency plan, and we spend with no plan. And so if the community and the governing board is going to go out for another bond, my concern is we'll be spending more money in the long run if we don't save some point or have a plan where it's strategically spent. I just want to highlight that.
The money that was spent on software is title money that was at the sites. I'm not sure Mr. Hicks could make a run on the fly. How does title money impact our credit rating, Mr. Hicks, and carry over in title?
Madam President, members of the board, it's the title funds aren't really factored in that much as really at all in that sense.
I appreciate you highlighting that, but we're looking at a couple things. So when we say trade-off, as Dr. Bell highlighted, we're trading off things that we can't purchase. We're purchasing something else. In my industry, we call it opportunity cost, what we're not going to pay now or buy now. We can't buy something else. $7.2 million, I think I saw that PowerPoint, was spent on technology, not from the bond, not from Title I money. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was the 2012 bond, the voters, and we have to spend it on that.
Correct. We have to spend it, but we also, everything is directly related. If we have to the budget plan that was presented 2 weeks ago, and we continue to go down on what's affecting that decrease in the contingency plan, we're going to have, they're not separate. At some point, they're connected. We are responsible for that.
We are not spending the money. Those programs that you saw are not being spent they are being spent out of, largely, I wouldn't say 100% on anything, out of title funding approved by through the state, through the federal auspices to do that, and those are separate kinds of things than the general budget approved by the governing board and what is largely looked at in our CAFR to make our bond rating. Is that an accurate statement, Mr. Hicks? Or would you correct that for me, please?
It is generally accurate. Everything's interrelated and everything's can be separate. So there's no easy questions here. There's no easy quick statement to say, has no impact or is no trade-off, or it does have an impact or doesn't have a trade-off. And so everything is true. There's nothing you're saying that's not right. We did use a 570 fund, our indirect cost fund, for a lot of this. That could be repurposed for something else in that sense. So I think we try to do the very best job to align with the goals and the mission of the district each and every year with our budget dollars every single year. Bond money can only be spent on bond money. And so that is going to continue to be that way. Some of these that are spent out of title funds cannot be spent out of bond money. That would be illegal to spend it out of bond money. So there has to be somewhere else to do that in that sense. So
Let me ask one simple question, hopefully. At the rate that we're spending our money now, will it have an impact on our credit rating for our district?
I'm sorry, Madam President, members of the board, the rate we're spending what now?
The money that we spend on personalized learning, because Mrs. Pangarelli identified a 400,000 roughly budget amount. Those types of spendings that we're spending it now at the rate we are doing in this fiscal year, will it, and we continue that rate, will it impact our credit rating?
Everything has an impact, Madam President, members of the board. That really doesn't hit the surface when we talk credit rating at all. But it all has an impact because bad management's bad management. They look at our governing board. How is that? How are things being passed? By and large, the number one thing is cash balances and unrestricted use of funds. So a title fund doesn't mean anything, but an indirect cost does because it can be used for additional things in that sense. So those areas that you're talking have almost no impact, but it's all interrelated. Everything matters in a general sense, but if we don't spend the title fund and have a bigger carry forward, that have any impact on our rating? No.
So the unrestricted monies that you just mentioned, is any of that money used on personalized learning?
Some could. That's normally the 610, 001.
But have we used it
indirect.
already? Have we used any money thus far from that bucket for personalized learning?
And so let me just first start. Personalized learning that we're talking here is what was on the presentation. Because I see personalized learning as differentiated instruction, which happens everywhere, which I can't tell you how much it does or doesn't cost, because it is happening before we got here, before we had this conversation, before Darwin, anywhere and everywhere. It's more focused and there's a digital content to it, but personalized learning in general has been happening. It's just more focused with a direct expectation higher now. So I get confused a little bit when we say how much is personalized learning, because it is hard to put a dollar on something that has been happening, continues happening, and will happen, because that's good instruction. And so has that or will that impact our unrestricted or carry forward? I go back to everything's interrelated. Does $400,000 have an impact? Yes, $400,000 would have an impact. Some of that is out of title funds. That doesn't have an impact. So we all keep throwing little numbers here and there to try to think for our rating. Having a better rating, I do think we deserve a ratings boost. Ms. Myers works very hard going over the CAFR to make the case. Some of it is in the state of Arizona that we are in, and the school finance and the shroud that we're under in that sense. They don't want to give us a ratings boost in that, even though I believe we deserve one. What will that do? That'll mean the cost of issuance. That does not mean we have more money to spend. That does not change how many things we can buy or anything. That just lowers the cost for our taxpayers, and that is a good thing to do. But that doesn't provide additional funding in that sense. So I think we deserve a ratings boost, but it's all interrelated, and they grill us on anything and everything, to be honest. So I don't know if that general statement covered a lot of what you guys were asking, but I hope it did. Carry forward is they do look at carry forward and cash balances in those funds, and that is a big thing.
Thank you.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. I think the most instructive thing that you said, the helpful thing that you said, is that when we talk about personalized learning, we're just talking about instruction. That's how we're doing instruction now. So you can't really say that, we're spending money on this kind of instruction, because it's pretty global now within our district. We're talking about instruction. So I think that was a very helpful clarification there. Another thing I think is worth mentioning, I think this is a conversation about prioritizing where we're spending our money. And several board members have said, and including me on previous occasions, what we need next is a good, solid strategic plan that incorporates how we are going to deliver instruction, much of which we moving forward will be personalized learning. But with that said, while we haven't formalized our list of priorities, we can't overspend our budget. So to portray that we're somehow overspending can't happen, correct, Mr. Hicks?
Madam President, members of the board, it can actually happen. We have not let it happen, and we
won't.
Ms. Myers and myself won't let that happen.
And we won't let that happen, right? So to make sure that, we're not causing fear out in the community that somehow we're overspending our budget, the professional staff here in PUSD would never let that happen. So, thank you.
Ms. Pingarelli?
Yes.
I apologize, but I have to leave. And I need to know if I need to do anything to this computer so I don't crash our meeting when I pack it up.
Start all over again.
And I really apologize. I
know.
absolutely
That's
have to
why
go.
we tried to move.
So do I need to do anything here to back out without killing everything?
Anything special other than sign out? So click on that little peg man.
Log out?
Just, yeah, go ahead and hit log out.
All right, thank you so much. And I want to say once again, thanks to all the information and stuff. It's been, and I'm probably going to go home and look at all this online while we're doing it. So I just can't stay.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Doan. And thank you, Dr. Bell, for the presentation. No problem. Just moving forward, though, I would like to have more transparency on what is spending, and until we get an updated strategic plan, really stay on top of the cost. So I appreciate everybody's input. And at this point, can we take a 10-minute break, which I need. I don't know if anybody else could use it.
If the president says so, we can.
Then I do say so, and it is done. They're just learning about it. Okay, because I mean, I know that there's several things to discuss. There's two that okay, I know that. I mean, I was gonna just have you know that. Once we can get started, there's certain things we're gonna do.
So she's going to have to date this.
Well, we're gonna take yeah, so to November. What's that? Equity
That's a nice thing to be able to do. Yeah.
Diane, you ready to start? Okay. So. All right, let's get started back. Thanks for the break. I needed to get up and walk around. The next item this evening is item 9.3, presentation discussion regarding Peoria Unified School District's performance pay system. Dr. Davidson?
Thank you, President Pingarelli, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. I'm excited tonight to have the opportunity to present what we hope is the foundation for our performance pay system for this school year. Let me get that open up here for you. And I'm just going to try it one more time. There it goes. All right. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come in October. I believe last year we presented this to you in December, so it's great to be here. And if you just follow along with me for a few minutes, you'll see we have a brief presentation tonight where we're just going to talk a little bit about the statutory requirements for performance pay, and then take a look at our three presented plans tonight. One for our certified staff, one for our site-based administrators, and one for our district administrators, as well as review next steps. So as we move into the statutory requirements, this is really in reference to Proposition 301. Roughly 16 years ago or so, the law allowed us to establish a plan for teacher performance pay. And as you can see up there, this is something that we bring to you every year for your approval and, of course, to answer any questions you may have regarding the plan. Proposition 301, or Classroom Site Fund, established three different pots of money there, seen in Fund 11, Fund 12, and 13. Those are used to support our teacher pay, our salary schedule, and so forth. And it is Fund 12 specifically, which makes up 40% of the Classroom Site Fund, that is used for performance pay. And now I'd like to just give you an opportunity to I'm going to give you some highlights, I guess, of our plans. I did also provide the attachments. Hopefully you had a chance to look at those as well. For our certified teachers, this plan mirrors that. Again, that was collaboratively developed in 14-15, and it remains very strong. As you can see, teachers are in support of our plan. We surveyed our teachers towards the beginning of this year. 86% of our returning teachers responded, and they gave us an approval rate of almost 85%. Just some important, you talked about metrics in our last presentation. I just wanted to highlight to you that this plan, I believe, and I mentioned it last year, if some of you recall, it's very teacher-friendly. We had 96% of all of our eligible certified teachers who are those eligible for performance pay received the full amount of $2,600 last year for their incentive or performance pay. So that really makes me happy that we can honor our staff for all their hard work. If you look at the key components, those remain the same as last year. 33% of the performance pay is geared towards their performance classification. 50% remains in support of our district graduation rate, and 17% is about the goal that they work with their administrator or their team on in some cases to establish, and there's a rating scale for that, as you probably saw in the plan. The next item I'd like to propose to you is a performance pay plan that's for our site-based administrators. Just to establish the understanding, this performance pay for administrators, I believe, has been a part of Peoria's practice for the last 20 or so plus years. What I'm bringing to you tonight is not at all a change in the amount, a change in where that money comes from, simply a more formalized and organized plan for administrators, both at the site level and at the district level. I'll start off by simply saying that the components you see there mirror that of the teacher's performance pay plan. This year we had a chance I'm working through a variety of committees right now. I started with our site-based administrators to look at their evaluation tool and receive feedback from that group of individuals as well as those in the field, just to get a sense of what do our administrators want. They were in support of this performance pay plan that is being proposed to you tonight. And as you can see, again, the 33%, the 50%, and the 17% mirror that of the teacher's plan. As for those of us that are housed here at the District Administrative Center, you will see that, again, it's looks almost like the one I just talked about. So the only difference is the way in which the items are listed. Performance classification instead of a, well, that actually remains the same. The verbiage is a little bit different in the evaluation tool, but the items remain the same. And in this case, we would have a staff or a department learning goal versus that of a school-based goal, correct? So those are the only differences that we have there. I also sought feedback on the district administrator performance pay plan that I proposed tonight and received favorable responses. I presented two different options. The ones that the field voted on were the ones, or the one I give to you tonight, that mirrored that of the teacher's plan. As for next steps, again, with your approval tonight, we hope that I would be able to begin communicating the plans to all of our impacted employees, spend some opportunity and time to train those that are impacted by our performance pay plans. I feel very confident that our teachers are familiar with those, but we will push those out again and showcase where they are found and how to use them to help with their instruction. And lastly, simply fully implement the plan for the remainder of this year. With that being said, I am open to any discussion or questions regarding these plans.
All right, Mrs. Connect.
No, I don't have any questions other than moving forward in future years. I think it'd be helpful to have this established maybe even in the summer before the school year actually begins, so that everybody knows when this is based on the 17-18 year. Actually adopting it in the middle of the year, I think, is a little late. So I have no other questions or comments other than I'd like to just start it earlier.
Certainly.
It's good.
Mrs. Sejar Martinez.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question to Kathy's or Ms. Connect's comment. Is there a why we have it now and not in the summer?
My response that I was willing to give to Ms. Connect, but I think it holds true here, is that we survey the teachers that return. And so I needed to make certain those teachers had come back and to ensure that my data source was accurate for those that agreed or disagreed with the plan, because those that have returned are the ones that are going to be impacted by the plan. So I certainly could understand the time frame of trying to move it forward, but that was the rationale.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And then to that point, the good news is Dr. Stifler stated that our retention rate was 92%. Is that what you said? For teachers. So
92% signed their contract.
Sign their contract.
I'm not sure that it's exactly the same thing, but I was trying to be very clear.
But really close to, so that's a good number. And if we continue on that trend and they keep coming back, then maybe we can get that evaluation or that survey out sooner if we know they're coming back. So that will help with that purpose. Excellent. I heard great things about getting feedback, survey, And then what really intrigued me is the statement about revisiting the evaluation tool. Doing what is mandated by the state, I understand that's a requirement, but taking out what is not deemed necessary, because I know we have great administration that are visiting classrooms, and so those verbatims would be beneficial to see in an evaluation tool instead of more work. The only other recommendation I'll ask for is that something I learned in my job is we have skip levels. What that means is those under, let's say I'm the manager, those under me would skip me and report to my manager, and they look for trends. I would like to see that similar practice in evaluation tool where teachers skip their site administrations and go straight to district administration for feedback, and same thing, or site, skip district admin, and go to the superintendent for that common communication for looking for trends. But that's
Good.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a fan of the skip level process. We haven't implemented that here, but I've seen that work in other industries. And in regards to the evaluation process, just as it pertains to this, I'll share with you, in gathering feedback from the field, quite often, even from an administrator's level to that of the teacher, people speak to the evaluation process as almost that of one in which you jump through hoops. I view evaluation as an opportunity to hopefully grow and change behavior in a positive sense as it relates to instruction and or, really making a difference on the campus. So I think we will be, and I know we will be, addressing each of our tools as it relates to not just what you mentioned, what the law demands, but also what's going to make that difference. So thank you.
I appreciate that. It's definitely a culture change.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, Dr. Davidson, I think, thank you. Just going along lines from a timing perspective, knowing that, our teachers are signing their contracts a little bit sooner the year prior to the next, education academic year, right? And I know it's the end of the year. I mean, do we have a sliver of time, at that point, once they sign their contracts to, inquire and get their feedback prior to the next academic year?
In regards to performance pay?
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
certainly we could, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
certainly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much for putting the presentation together. I really appreciate it. I don't have any questions tonight, and thank you for sticking around
Thank
so
you,
late.
President Pingarelli. And with that said, I'm going to show you my last slide there, and that would be for our hope tonight that, of course, administration recommends that the governing board approve our performance pay system for the 17-18 school year as presented.
All right.
Thank you.
I would need a motion and a second to move it forward.
I move that we approve the recommended performance pay for the 2017-2018 school year.
Second.
All right, members, please cast your vote. Shouldn't be much longer. All right, it passes. Next agenda item is agenda item 9.3 with Mrs. Connect's approval. I would like to go ahead and move that to November. We checked on the date. We can have it in the November meeting and still meet the deadline for it. So we're just going to table that until November.
No objection.
Okay. Then the next one would be 9.4, Bond Committee Update. And Mr. Hicks, welcome back.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler, colleagues and community members. This is just a brief report. We wanted to keep it going just as a reminder that the governing board on September 28th passed the formation of the committee and set the ground rules for that, which is each board member selecting 2 of the people that have submitted interest forms to the district. I think as of tonight, just as an update, we've received 2 board member selections. We're hoping to have that done by next week so that we could also send out emails to all those that are forming. So once all board members make their selections, Darwin will put in front of him and we'll get him to select his 3. Could be additional 3 up to that point if we're looking to make sure that we have a diverse group to make the best decisions possible for the district. The hope is that by the end of next week, we're sending out just a welcome email that you've been selected, notifying the people, and then start setting the schedule and seeing about the times and places to meet for everybody. That'll be the process. So we're hoping by the end of November, we'll get our first meeting underway. We start just traditionally, just letting you guys know, I start since I have a good, energized, group there that really want to be there, that I'm going to start talking about school finance just so they understand how we receive our money and not just go right into what we're looking at. I did throw out at a governing board meeting in September about maybe having the board set up front the dollar amount. The board, I heard no board members take me up on that, so that'll probably the beginning of our first meeting we'll be doing that. So we could have that conversation first because it'll help frame the conversation going forward. So it's kind of flipped it from what we've done in the past. If it doesn't work, obviously we'll adapt on the fly and we'll switch it back in that sense. So I just wanted to provide an update where we are. Haven't had the committee's members all selected now, but we are hoping by next week that it'll be selected and they will all receive an email. And I stand for any questions.
Mr. Sandoval? Mrs. Connect?
I have a comment to make. So after the last board vote at our last meeting, it was concluded that district committees will now be dominated by board member appointees in what I believe is a pretty bizarre power loop in which a committee is charged with advising a board that has chosen committee members to represent the positions of the board members. So I think that engineering district committees in that way is unethical and disingenuous, and I have decided that I won't participate in the selection of the people the way it was imagined, I believe. And so I've asked administration to allow me to draw 2 names at random from the list of applications.
That would be your choice. Mrs. Sierra Martinez?
Thank you for that information. I am hopeful that we have 46 applications, and just to clarify, they weren't applications, they were interest forms. And it was interesting to see no past committee members or continuous committee members submit their forms. So I question why that came about, but bottom line is we had representation from way down south by Raymond S. Kellis all the way up north, and so it was enlightening to see that we had new interests submitted. And to support the calendar committee, we had 14 hard forms, paper forms. So I see that when a district is enlightening, the fact that we're speaking of asking for new voices and people are coming to the table for new voices, that is a good testament that we are on the right track. A test and learn environment, that's what we are in education. And so I look forward to any new recommendations for solutions to help move our district in a community-based environment for education as we are community schools. Thank you.
Just, Madam President, members of the board, just for clarification, we did have 3 of those were on the previous committee. So there wasn't none, there were 3.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I don't have any questions, Mr. Hicks. Thank you so much. All right, then the next agenda item would be update on annual bond and override program, including tax rate and future projects. Mr. Hicks, welcome back.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler, colleagues, community members, thank you very much. for allowing me to continue at this late hour. I understand that, and I understand that the board is considered a lot and doing a lot. So I'm going to try to be brief, even though this is a legal requirement that we have to do this in front of our community and try to communicate as much positive or at least good information out there as possible. But I do understand we all have had long days in that sense, so me included. So first, why am I here? It's an annual, it's a statutory requirement that with a bond and override, every year sometime between September 1st and October 31st, we have to have a meeting in the public. This meets that requirement. For the override update, we just really let people know here's how it was spent and here's how we continue to project it. And so the one thing that was added last year, if you go down to the very bottom, which is support staff and all-day kindergarten, was added, and so we spent $6.3 million on that. We'll continue that. So that was to provide all-day kindergarten, and then the raises that happened in 16-17, and then continued throughout, but they were initially given in 16-17, that it was 6.81%, but between the Prop 123 and the increase override was allowed that. So this is just pretty simple. We kept it with whatever is on the forms and what has been going on last year. Going on to the bond program update, I think we all know, and everybody's referenced lots and lots of times, we had a $180 million bond approved in 2012. It was the first bond, I believe, that did not include land or new construction in the history of the Peoria School District. Here's what the voter information pamphlet looked like. So it was a breakdown of these 5 categories: elementary, high school, transportation, technology, and admin. So just to give a little summary of what we had in an actual fund balance, and we sold some bonds, and we spent some money, and we ended with a fund balance, and we still have some unsold bonds. So this is just to summarize up, and you can see that 31,646,103, that aligned to what our annual financial report was at the last meeting that we went through our AFR, and so this aligns to that. This is a common spreadsheet that we do to try to just summarize up where we've spent the money historically, and then what was added to that year and how much money is left. There is a change on this, and so this is, I think I gave the board a report notification, just a little heads up, which was, oh, you can't even see it all in here, I'm sorry. I like it all in one. So you can see there's a column that has a red number down there. That is a correction. So what we noticed is how we categorize the money, not what was changed in the general ledger. There was a mistake on the categorization. So we had to recategorize how some funds were actually spent. And so this is a correction. So if you go up to the line, you can see it says prior year category correction as of 6/30/016. And so that is letting you know they were previously, they were included in these other numbers. So the 30 million, the 19 million, the 9, the 27, the 2 for the 88, they were already included in that. And this is either an increase or a decrease to those categories and the new numbers. So we're kind of restating what those expenses are through 2016. And so just to hit a little bit more, our general ledger and nothing changed in that sense. It's a manual process on how we categorize, and actually somebody brought to our attention how it didn't seem fully accurate when he brought it to our attention. Ms. Myers and her team went back through the data to look at it and kind of did like a review of all of it and found, yes, in fact, that was correct. And so we're now restating that. So it's kind of like the updated expenses through 6/30/016 is now the restatement of that. Just another column to draw your line. Bless you. Another column to draw your attention to is the second one, which is current project budgets. And so we are allowed, so going back down to this bottom, this note, and you've heard conversation about we're allowed to move up to 10% of the bond funds between those categories. So 18 million of the $180 million can be moved within those different categories. This, you could see, is a new budget where we have moved some money around. So where we're projecting, just looking at the future projections and where we're at, we've moved some money around in that. So that's a new column as well, or I think we had the column, but it always was exactly equal to the column before it, which was on the voter information pamphlet. So telling you where it was originally stated, how we've moved a little bit, and then the existing, the previous, the corrections, now the updated, and then you can see the last column, or the second to last column is the projected expenses, and so this project expenses, which is this once again aligns to that AFR, the 31,646,103. So this shows how much we have left in each of those remaining categories. So just wanted to summarize that. That is new so that people can digest that for our community and public that look at this. We could continue to see some movement, not more corrections. They've gone diligently through everything back. But so just hitting some of the other thing that a requirement from this meeting is just saying how we spent some of the money. So here's just a little quick summary of how some of those expenses are. Working on fire alarm systems, flooring, HVAC, landscaping, lighting, roofing, security systems. We've done a parking lot, fencing, playground. And so I try to put a little bit of those pictures in so you can see the new carpeting. We do put different carpeting right in front because it lasts a little longer, so a little stronger. These are all carpet squares. So that's another, what I call a big improvement because you could have a lot on stock. If something, you just pop one down, pop a new one in. It's really easy. Here's our polished concrete. As you can see that is also, I think, a huge benefit. We've had conversations at our patron tour from people asking about it. I did not know this, but that is pretty much, you could never touch that floor again, just soap and water on it for the rest of its life, which is a great thing considering the previous VCT and how much we had to strip and seal it and all the chemicals related to it. There's just the floor being put in. Here's some fencing projects. I think that's at Desert Palms. Some other bond projects. We had the fencing again here, some of the landscaping. Here's the parking lot at Foothills, which was a huge benefit over there. At the high schools, we redid 2 gym floors, 2 tennis courts, some track, fire alarm system, flooring, HVAC systems, weatherization. You might call it painting. We call it weatherization, lighting, and some security systems. So here's the tennis court. Here's a floor, one of our high schools, new floor done. It's really shiny if you could see that. Here's the painting at Centennial, which I think looks, my personal opinion, looks really nice. This is painting interior, so we actually do that as well too. So it does take a lot of effort to move everything away from the walls. Some more polished concrete at the high school, some more flooring, some carpet squares. And then administrative, we've had our roof, lighting, some HVAC system at either Troya, our food service, transportation is what administrative. It is not just district office, so it encompasses all sites. We bought 20 buses, 7 of those white buses. Our white buses have been very successful. That has been a transition in the last couple of years to buy more of those. You could put more students on them. They're on a van chassis, and so that our employees are allowed to actually drive them without having to have a CDL requirement. And so they have taken advantage at the high school where they do not wait with a lot of our transportation issues. They do not wait for the bus to get done with their last route to come get them. They'll just put the freshman team on that bus and then go, and they don't have to wait. And then you could have JV and varsity picked up by the one bus in that sense. So it has provided a huge benefit. We've had some conversation about technology, but they've put in technology, intercoms, networking, printers, cabling, back and forth is all part of it. Tax rate, so I'll go into a little bit more about what we have left. We have 54 million left, although we've already sold the 20 million this July. So if you remember, we sold 20 this July. So we technically only have, as of this date, 34 million left but as this report is through June 30th. And so our bonding capacity, that is a question that does come up a lot, especially because before the law changed, that was a huge issue that we were not projected to be able to sell. The $180 million bond was not going to have enough capacity to actually sell it. And so the law changed about 5 or 6 years ago to change we have a statutory threshold or capacity, and then we have a legislative capacity. The legislative is much lower than the statutory, and they increased that a little bit up from 10 to 20%. That allowed us more capacity. So you could see right now, this fiscal year, if we wanted to, we could sell in excess of $200 million in bonds right now. Just putting this out through FY 2025, you could see we'd be able to sell in excess of $400 million over the next 7-8 years. And so we have a lot of capacity to do pretty much. Now, we're not a wealthy district, so I'm not going to say Scottsdale could probably sell $1 billion right now. We're not that, but we do have a lot. Now, we obviously wouldn't sell all 400 million or all 200 million right now, because what would that do? That would dramatically increase our tax rate. So this is the tax rate as projected with the final 2 sales over 2 more years. So the next 2 years. Next 2 Julys, we would spread that out equally, so you'd probably sell around $17 million each year with a really standard schedule. If we sold everything right away, we could, but it would increase the tax rate, which maybe selling it, that does have an impact on ratings as well. Just to remind, or just to bring back in also the ratings conversation we had a little bit on a previous board agenda item. The biggest issue with ratings is the carry forward, as mentioned, and cash. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place right now in this late hour. I apologize. Cash balances. Up until last year, we had the ability, or districts had a little bit more flexibility. The legislature has taken that away, and cash is no longer figured into its tax rate. So one of the main components for a rating is now taken away from us by the legislature, meaning that Maricopa County actually sets the tax rate with almost no input from the school districts. So that is eroded over time for various reasons, but just to tie that back in, we do have some influence on how we set our bond schedule up, but the actual other side of it, the primary rate is actually almost has no impact over us, the ability to carry forward more cash, to build up a cash reserve that has gone away. But so this does show, you can see a little bit up and down of our tax rate projected for the next few years. Just also note, our tax rate projections, whenever we do anything, we normally use zero growth. So this shows zero growth in our assessed valuation. Part of that is because the new laws also require us to use a 10-year average. And so if you remember what has happened 10 years ago, we had dramatic declines in our assessed valuation. So when you look at our assessed valuation over a 10-year period, it's actually about down 1%. And so instead of using a negative 1% for our tax rate, attorneys are okay with us using zero. Now, if you look and drive around our district, you could, or even if you looked at our AVs this year, which maybe 2 of us in this room have looked at it, our secondary, or what we used to call our secondary assessed valuation, grew by 9%. So it would be hard for me to believe that it's only growing, that there's going to be absolutely no growth if you drive around our district. We have growth of new existing property, but we also have growth in the new property, but we also have existing property is growing as well, appreciating the value too. Just as a reminder, this tax rate chart has zero growth in it. It is zero. It is the same AV all the way through it. Probably spent way too much time talking about that. Future plans, just so you continue to know what are we doing. We have schedules in place for weatherization for interior and exterior painting, so those are all on our website. So principals, although there are none in this room left, they can go right to our portal and see when are they scheduled for their painting or their weatherization, when are they scheduled for flooring. We put that all out there so they could see exactly. I was at a school today and they said, hey, I'm on the list for getting it done this year. When does that mean? I said, I don't know. Call Chris Deeg. He'll let you know. But if we said this year, you're getting it done this year. We do have more fire alarms and HVAC systems in there. I will tell you, we still have 2 fire alarms that we're working through the SFB systems. It takes an extremely long period of time, so we're probably about 5 months into that process. The SFB is something we do look for because it is a lot of it are bond covered. But I will tell you right now, I think I've reported multiple times on the 3 schools that we have submitted. We submitted them over a year ago, and we're still working through the process for those schools to get repairs. The benefit of a bond is you could just do it right away as soon as you sell the bonds and funds. We're working through it because we do think it's what's best for our district and to receive some, those could be large dollar amounts, but those are over a year. That started in last October that we submitted and had them come out to our facility to walk it, and they said, yes, you deserve something. We've gotten, I think, 3 small amounts for investigation from a vendor of their selection. They've been out. They were really busy over the summer and haven't been out, and they ignored us, and so now they have been out, and we're waiting for the report so that we can submit that to the SFB board to get funding for those 3 major projects. So although we do look at the SFB, it is a very difficult process. Even though there could be large dollar amounts, it does take a super long time. We have some continued landscaping for the rest of this year. Safety and security, front offices, we did 3 of them this last year, we'll continue. Now, solar arrays was also part of the 2012 bond, so purchasing of those 9 sites that we have them on, there was money allocated for that. That is still in there. That could be something that we say, hey, we don't want to look at that and maybe not purchase it. We do not have to purchase them. Each one of those agreements were set up with a purchase clause in them after, I believe, 6 years. So after 6 years of use, we would be able to look at that. But we would be able to look at the value of that and see, is that something that's worthwhile? If the buyout clause is more than what we think it's worth, then we're going to just keep purchasing the power from them at that discounted rate instead. So just wanted to mention that as well, and hopefully that answered all your questions and gave you a good overview of our bond. I know it's been said by our board president and others before, but we're one of the few districts that every single board meeting, if you look a few agenda items down, we put every purchase order that goes through the bond is listed individually on their budget and facilities report later on. So there's an extreme amount of transparency in that sense. And so I will stand for any questions.
Mr. Sandoval, do you have any questions?
Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Hicks. So based on the key priorities of the 2012 bond, what we spent, and some opportunities that we still have to enhance some of our schools, I mean, on track with the monies that are available, I guess, that are left.
Yeah, Madam President, members of the board, the 2012 bond was, I think we've said it a lot of times, but it can't be said enough, has been life-saving for this district to put in. So I only showed the pictures from this year, but if you look at the roofs, the HVAC systems that have gone on that were near failure has been amazing. So we have done a lot. Some of them cost a little bit more than probably we anticipated. I don't know, at Ironwood, we expected to spend $7-8 million on that chiller tower and HVAC system and EMS system. So it's a balance as we go through, and I would hate to say, yes, we covered everything and everything comes up high and now we fall up short at the end because we have a couple years. So I don't like to say anything, but it's covering a lot, and we have schedules in place that we believe we can honor, and we're doing a pretty good job with what we have. Thanks.
Mrs. Connect? Okay. Mrs. Seher-Martinez?
Thank you again for the presentation. I like the fact that we are focusing on future projects for safety. I know that our community, we need a bond in order to continue to keep safety as a priority. Also in modernization in our South, so that the technology that we bring forward to all our students have access to it. So safety and modernization for our South is what we I would like to see in that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to tell you thank you, Mr. Hicks, again for putting the presentation together. I don't have any questions, but I appreciate your time this late hour.
Thank you very much.
All right. The next one is 9.6, presentation and discussion on ASBA Equity Challenge. This one was requested by Mr. Sandoval, and
Yeah, President Pingarelli, in light of time, I move that we table this, and maybe we can, prioritize it at a subsequent board meeting.
okay. Well, I thank you for that. Do we need to have a vote to table? Nope. Okay. Next item, we've already done personalized learning. Oral report and discussion regarding local, state, and federal legislative issues and governmental activities. Dr. Stifler, is there? Okay, thank you very much. Next agenda item, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Mrs. Connect, do you have any? Okay, Mrs. Seher-Martinez?
No.
Okay, Mr. Sandoval? Okay, I do not either. Next one would be informational. And this would be budget, facilities, planning, and construction and these can be found on our website. Next one is district budget report for month of July 2017. Again, this can be found on our website. Thank you. Next item, district budget report for the month of, was that August?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And again, I'm repetitive tonight. It can be found on the website. Next item, report for upcoming meetings and events. And I wanted to point out, on October 28th, this Saturday from 9 to 12, there's the Career Exploration Day at Centennial High School. I know I will be there, and I hope some other board members. It will be a very good experience. And then Ms. Aries had recommended that I ask board members to please let her know for upcoming events who will be coming, so she has an idea. Anything else? Okay.
Mrs. Pingarelli, I had asked about a list of Veterans Day events. A lot of them overlap, and so I know we can't do a lot of them, but I'd kind of like to know what the options are.
President Pangarelli, members of the board, we are compiling that list for you. We've had results back from, I think, 7 or 8 schools as of yesterday, and we will have that early next week.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right. Next item is the draft agenda for November 9th, 2017.
I'm assuming that there may be some changes since we tabled some items.
There definitely will be changes and some things added, and hopefully it won't be as long as tonight, but it will probably be long. Thank you very much.
And it will be the only meeting.
It'll be the.
Regular board meeting in November.
That is correct. So,
Thanksgiving.
Because of Thanksgiving.
yes.
Wow.
That'll be 3 weeks from today. All right, next agenda item, I think where everybody is very happy to see, would be adjournment. I would need a motion. If anybody wants to go home.
I move that we adjourn this evening's meeting.
I'll second it. Members, please cast your vote so we can have dinner. And it does pass. All right. It was close. It was close. Okay, we might have had to stay longer. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around till 9:45. Appreciate it. We'll see you here in 3 weeks. Thank you.